Hi guys! Today's story is called I Will Take Care of the Male Lead Welfare. I hope you enjoy watching, so don't forget to like and subscribe. With a welcoming smile on his lips, the butler escorted the young lady through the evening light, and with a slight gesture, handed her luggage into the caring hands of the maid. He opened the doors to an ancient estate where time seemed to stand still. The ladies were welcomed into the stately mansion of the Archduke Blackwell, a house full of secrets and shadows. Laria Sherwood is the name of the one who crossed the threshold. In her thoughts, everything resembled the pages of a novel, echoing corridors, where the silence was so deep that every dripping sound of rain outside the window could be heard. Suddenly, a voice broke the silence. Laria screamed, confused and furious, asking where the boy who had disappeared like a shadow was. She clung to the man, as if searching for an answer in him, but the young man did not respond, as if the words had passed him by. He moved forward without turning around, cold and distant, and breaking free from her grasp, he demanded freedom with fury. At that moment, a scarlet liquid spilled onto the girl's hand and neck, as if the night itself had wounded her. With horror in her voice, she tried to comprehend what had happened. Had the Archduke really killed Henry? The young man threw his sword onto the stones and only quietly confirmed his guess, coming closer. He said that Henry's closeness to her had stirred up a storm within him, seething envy and impotent rage. Thus fell Henry by the hand of jealousy. Lightning flashed outside the windows, tearing the face of a young man out of the darkness, with eyes full of tears. He admitted to himself he couldn't lose her. It would be better for everyone to disappear than to live in a world where her heart didn't belong to him. The butler reappeared, tearing the heroine from the captivity of memories. The Archduke was waiting behind the massive door, awaiting her appearance. He asked a silent question, and the girl, gathering her will, confidently stepped forward, trying to gain control over herself. As they entered, he announced the arrival of Lady Sherwood, and only then did she realize that before her stood the very man, the hero whose shadow had hovered over the pages of her novel. He suggested starting the interview, and Laria felt how reality intertwined with her own fiction. Before her was Nocton Blackwell, a cold-blooded monster devoid of mercy, infamous for killing his own father, his name surrounded by fear and legend. He is the protagonist of her own tragedy. In the story she wrote, he was destined to meet a saint on his way to the Holy Lands. Thus began a story full of pain, redemption, and love, slowly blossoming in the cracks between madness and destiny. She got the role of a villain who would do everything in her power to interfere with the love of the main characters. This young lady was Laria Sherwood. The girl was madly in love with the main character. The gist of Laria's story in the novel was that she desperately sought Nocton's love, but failed every time. When the main characters finally got together, Laria, overcome with jealousy, tried to harm the main character in every way possible. Because of this, she incurred Nocton's wrath and was eventually killed by his hand. Thus ended her story. On the day when the young lady woke up in Laria's body, she couldn't believe her eyes for a long time. The girl kept thinking that it was just a dream that was about to end. But alas, she realized that she was doomed to die. The blonde locked herself in her room and didn't want to come out. She simply couldn't come to terms with her terrible fate. The servants whispered whether their mistress's condition had changed. One of the maids confirmed that everything was the same, and no one understood why the young lady suddenly closed herself in and refused to come out. In the end, they decided that it was better to leave her alone, since they couldn't help her anyway until the lady herself wanted it. The main character wondered if this was punishment for abandoning the novel without finishing it. But suddenly, an idea struck her. The girl thought that the meeting between Laria and Nocton had happened on Laria's own initiative, and if she did something different and avoided Nocton with all her might, then perhaps she could survive. Moreover, knowing the plot, she can avoid all the places where she could accidentally run into him. The girl thought that this would definitely give her a chance to save herself. The young lady finished her thoughts and said that it was worth trying. The main character decided to take advantage of the fact that she knew all the events of the novel, because with this information, she could change the fate of Laria Sherwood. She thought she would secure a secure future for herself But things didn't go as planned. One day, a small crack appeared in her flawless plan, and then everything started to fall apart. The young lady entered the room where her family was having breakfast. Her mother said that she was late. The main character greeted her mother, but she only asked how she was not ashamed to wish them good morning after being so late. The father who works hard away from his family for their benefit, and she, an ungrateful idle woman who doesn't deserve even a handful of rice, now shows her character by locking herself in her room. The woman asked if Luria wasn't ashamed at all, then told her to come in and sit down quickly so as not to keep everyone waiting. The young lady complied, and thought to herself that this morning, just like in the original, she again had to listen to her stepmother's moralizing, after which everyone began to have breakfast. The main character sat down calmly next to her older brother, but suddenly the boy opposite her started giggling. Laria didn't understand what was funny about it, but when she tried her piece of meat, she immediately spat it out. The boy and his mother just smirked at this, and the young lady realized that this jerk had oversalted her food. The blonde claims that this dish is not to her taste. She understands that nothing foreshadowed trouble, because it was a completely ordinary day, the events of which she knew perfectly well. So the pranks of her stepbrother were even expected given their relationship in the novel. The main character tells the maid to bring her some biscuits. The maid is a little shocked by this, and Luria just tells her to hurry up, after which the maid brings a biscuit, and then turns to the lady, a little excitedly, tells her to eat little by little and not to rush. The main character thanks the maid for her concern, and thinks that the maid is so worried because she had not eaten properly before. The young lady realizes that she hasn't eaten biscuits for a long time, and this is her favorite dish. But here, unfortunately, buckwheat flour is quite an expensive pleasure. Her mother and brother just look at each other and smile, and then the woman excitedly asks what's wrong with her daughter's face. The main character thinks who could have known that a simple breakfast would show her that this is not just a novel, but a very real whole world. This incident was that very small crack. The maid only claims that the young lady has an allergic reaction to buckwheat, and the girl is a little shocked by this. The maid only adds that, fortunately, everything is not so serious, and the girl only needs to rest and exclude buckwheat from her diet. The mother asks why the girl should eat buckwheat, to which she is allergic. And the younger brother claims that, of course, he always teased his sister by calling her Pumpkinhead, but now her head is exactly like a pumpkin. Mom tells her daughter to be attentive and take care of herself in the future, because she is not a little girl anymore. The main character is just shocked, because she doesn't remember Luria being allergic to buckwheat, because she didn't write anything like that in the novel, and didn't write such details for this character. The maid says that this is precisely why she did not want to serve this dish to her mistress. After all, she had been sick from biscuits for a long time, and after that, she didn't ask for them at all. So the maid asks why the lady suddenly wanted to try this dish today. And because of this, Madame scolded her too. The main character only apologizes to the maid, and the maid asks the young lady to be more careful next time. Laria thinks that this is very different from the events she described. The girl thinks that this is all very strange, and if you think about it carefully, then having tormented the main character, Luria, the joyful estate returned, surrounded by red roses. The young lady even remembers describing how she danced alone among the roses, but now there is not a single flower there, let alone roses. After Togokak got into the novel, she was busy adapting to this place, so she didn't even pay attention to it, but everything there is completely different from what she wrote. The young lady couldn't even imagine that history could develop on its own, and in other words, this also means that she can meet the main character anytime and anywhere. Well, the young lady tries to distract herself from these thoughts. She understands that she shouldn't immediately think about the bad. After all, it would be better for her to pull herself together and find the personal diary that Laria kept, because if she can find it, she will compare her knowledge of the novel with Laria's notes, and then she will come up with something. Thus, consoling herself, the main character tried to grasp at the tiny hope of survival, and she ignored the growing anxiety that made her feel uneasy. The young lady understands that this diary must be somewhere in there, and after a few moments he sees it under one of the dresses. Well, suddenly, I hear the voice of the maid from behind the door, who claims that the mistress has a guest. The main character claims that she wasn't expecting anyone, but the maid says that the man said he came to pick up Laria Sherwood, so is the mistress sure that she wasn't expecting anyone? The young lady is shocked by this and does not understand who it is. But then the maid claims that this person has arrived on the orders of Archduke Blackwell. The main character is a little shocked by this. She understands that she needs to read the notes quickly, because even though the plot has changed, she couldn't just meet Nocton so quickly. But when the girl turns to one of the pages of the book, she is surprised. She thinks when she will finally be able to get rid of this suffering, and will it really happen only after death? Her father always treated her indifferently, and Hilary's stepmother did nothing but reproach her for the slightest mistake and punish her. Even her own brother pretended that she did not exist, and Adolia's half-brother tried to make fun of her and hurt her in every way. In this house, she has no support or support. But today, she was very lucky, because she found an ad that the Blackwell family was looking for a nanny for their children. The main character reads that if Laria had managed to get a job with the Archduke, she could have lived happily ever after. Unfortunately, she has no work experience, but she is sure that she will come up with something. Laria also needs to write a resume and secretly send it to the Blackwell mansion the day after tomorrow. The girl wrote that she would believe that everything would work out and she would be able to leave this terrible place. The main character, looking at one of the pages, thinks how it happened that the novel she wrote changed so much. Suddenly, a maid approaches the lady from behind the door and asks if she can come in and help her change her clothes. When the young lady agrees, the maid begins preparations, claiming that she will try to cover up the allergy stains with powder. Laria only thinks that even if she refused to accept the person he sent, it is not a fact that this Herzog would simply give in and leave her alone. But, on the other hand, if she goes there now, she will meet Nocton, because she will have to talk with him. But the girl thinks that if their meeting is inevitable, then it would be wiser to meet him and then decide how to proceed, because such a plan will be more reliable and flexible, and everything will be under control. When a young lady enters the room, her mother immediately jumps up from her seat and screams her daughter's name. The protagonist apologizes for keeping them waiting and asks to be allowed to introduce herself, then states that her name is Laria Sherwood. The messenger says that the girl has finally arrived, and he was waiting for her arrival. Well, suddenly, the girl's mother interrupts him and tells her daughter that they need to talk alone. She turns to the young man and apologizes because she urgently needs to talk to Laria, and she hopes that the guy does not mind. And the message says that of course they can do it, and he will wait, after which he is left alone. And when Laria and her mother go out into the corridor, the woman cries out whether her daughter wants to explain to her what the envoy from the Archduke's estate is doing there. And did the young lady send in her resume, hoping to become a nanny? The woman also screams why the hell Laria decided to do this secretly. The main character just sighs and thinks that she expected such a reaction. She wonders what to do in such a situation, whether it is worth trying to apologize. But the girl understands that this is not an option, and seriously says that her mother herself said that she is an ungrateful slacker who does not deserve even a grain of rice. The woman is shocked by this, and the young lady understands that even if it wasn't her who did it, she still can't bend over backwards for them and needs to stand up for herself. The girl claims that she made this decision because she doesn't want to remain a slacker any longer. But then he turns to her and says that she should have consulted her family anyway and not made the decision alone. But the young lady asks if they ever cared about her. These two are surprised, and the main character only asks if they have managed to forget that they did not react in any way to their sister, who had a rash on buckwheat. The girl claims that she does not remember her family being concerned about her condition. Then the young man says that it was not worth making the decision alone anyway, because their lives depend on it, and not just hers. Laria says that if that's the case, then she will listen to what her brother thinks about it. The envoy sits with a cup of tea and wonders what they are discussing for so long. The main character's brother says that they should start with the fact that the Blackwell family is the most respected in the empire, and asks if at least his sister understands that if she makes even the slightest mistake there, then their entire family will not escape shame. The main character just thinks for a minute, and then goes to her brother. She claims that if they understand that the girl is not suitable for this role, who will not hire her anyway. But then her relatives, and of course, they thought. And she also tells them to finally stop pretending, because she is already sick of their game. The blonde tells them to remain a family that doesn't care about anything when it comes to her. And then she heads down the stairs and sighs. Laria thinks that even though she will return there later, but now she made the right decision. The girl, with a smile on her face, hopes that this will serve as a lesson to them and they will not bother her anymore. Well, suddenly, her brother stands in front of the door, blocking the passage. The main character asks what Adolf wants, but he only asks the pumpkin why she suddenly decided to leave home and whether it was because he had been teasing and bullying her all this time. He screams for Laria to tell him where she's going. The main character just thinks, what does it matter to him? And it would be better if he sat in the corner and didn't stir. The girl tells the messenger that her brother is not quite right in the head, so it is better to simply ignore him. The young lady thinks, what is the point of all these games and changing shoes? Because if he behaved like a bastard in front of his family, then let him show what a jerk he is in front of others. The main character asks her brother what is the point of all this, and tells him to let the guest through and to stand aside. But the guy just claims that he will never move from his spot, and the main character, without listening to him, simply walks past. Then the young man screams her name, but the main character is not very concerned about this and simply leaves. Now she is talking to the Archduke. The girl asks permission to tell a little about herself. She says that she is 19 years old and is the second eldest in the family. Then the brunette only says that this is enough, and the young lady must have had a hard time getting there. The blonde says that thanks to the fact that the Duke kindly sent a comfortable carriage, she got there in comfort. The young lady thinks that who would have thought that she would ever be able to see in real life a character from a novel she wrote. She couldn't even imagine that by writing his appearance, the girl created such a handsome man. But when the guy notices her gaze, she immediately turns away. The young lady understands that she has been looking at him for too long. He looks at the main character and is silent, and then says that he read her resume, after which he claims that, to be honest, his business is in the trash. The girl only wonders if Laria really wrote it that badly, so she asks the Archduke what he thinks about what is written there. But the guy says that, at the very least, he had questions about why she mentioned sewing lessons and tea parties if it had nothing to do with work. But he still decided to give her a chance to prove herself, since the young lady wrote that she could handle even hard work, such as cleaning the house. But something tells him that the girl would rather cry with the child than calm him down. Laria wonders if this was humiliation, and considering that before her rebirth she was a kindergarten teacher, her pride was hurt. After all, she alone took care of more than 10 children, and he only had 2, so she can definitely cope. However, it is not worth telling Nocton about this, otherwise she will have to explain what is what, and all she can do in this situation is pretend to be the girl from the resume. So the young lady smiles and says that maybe it is so, because the guy can't know for sure. The girl asks if he will give her a chance, and the guy claims that he will never go for such an adventure, and the interview is over. The whole, unfortunately, the young lady does not suit them. He also claims that she is probably tired from the road, so let her rest a little and then return back. After which he leaves and wishes her a good journey. The main character watches him go, and then just rejoices and thinks that everything went perfectly. After observing Nocton, she was convinced that he had no interest in her person, which meant that she could live a happy life if she simply didn't get involved with him. The girl thinks that now it is time to start creating her bright future in order to properly enjoy life in this world. She is glad that everything went so smoothly, and there was no need to even worry that something would go wrong. But suddenly, the young lady hears someone screaming and wonders if it was a child's voice. Someone else was telling the young gentleman to stop crying. He claimed that he would forgive this time, but the boy should not repeat this mistake twice, and he should control his body, not making unnecessary movements. After all aristocrats go through this stage, and there is no way to do without physical punishment. The main character wonders who the hell punishes children like that. She immediately starts running towards the screams and wonders what the hell this is. And when he opens the door, he sees 2 little kids in tears. Laria asks what they are doing there. When the woman swings her weapon again, the young lady covers the children and screams for her to stop right now. But the brunette only asks who the girl is, and how she dares to block her path. The main character says that her name is Laria Sherwood, and she came to an interview for a nanny position. The woman just smirks and says that this is ridiculous, so let the girl stop and be more reasonable. Otherwise, she will think that the young lady wants to say that it's better for her to follow her orders and not the instructions of the Archduke. The young lady claims that this is not the case, and it is because the children looked so scared. The main character, seeing the boy's wound, approaches him and asks what's wrong with his hand and how much it hurts. The young man claims that his fingers are burning, and Laria thinks that lying on such a son as a child committed because of spilled tea. The young lady thinks how it is possible to be so cruel, and it is a pity that she at least has a heart. The girl takes him in her arms and thinks that first, she needs to provide the boy with medical assistance. But the woman stands near the door, blocking her way, and asks where the young lady is going. The girl claims that the boy needs to be taken to the doctor, but the woman says she won't allow it, believing that he only has a small burn on his hand. And Laria still has a chance to leave before she tells the gentleman what she allows herself to do here. The blonde asks if the woman thinks she will just close her eyes to the fact that she is raising children in such a barbaric way, allowing them to harm children. And the brunette asks if a stranger can understand the importance of such an upbringing. The main character thinks how this woman infuriates her and wonders if there really are people who are proud of the fact that they are sadists, even towards children. That's why the girl screams for the woman to take him to the doctor herself, because if help is not provided soon, a scar may remain. But then the Archduke enters the room and asks what it means to provide assistance and what is going on there. He says that the girls could be heard from a kilometer away, so let them take the trouble to explain what kind of commotion happened there. But then he says that the boy looks like he has a wound, so they will postpone the discussion for later, and first they need to take him to the doctor, as the lady suggested. The doctor, treating the boy's wound, says that it's good that they didn't delay, and immediately brought the gentleman to him. Otherwise, painful blisters could have appeared, and the main character just sighs and thinks that it's very good that they made it in time. But then someone addresses her by her full name, and it turns out to be the Archduke. He says that the girl, of course, was right when she said that he needed to be taken to the doctor, but he tells her to explain one thing, and that is why the guest interfered in the internal affairs of the house. The main character understands that even though the woman said that this was the Archduke's approved method of teaching and raising children, but watching Noctin's reaction, one can say with certainty that he hardly gave such permission. Michael and Jeanette are not Noctin's biological children, and their biological father is him, the one Noctin hated the most. But he died, and then, after giving birth, their biological mother left this world. Noctin decided to take the children away from those children and raise them. He didn't see them that often for work, and one could even say that their relationship was not warm. But despite this, he tried very hard to take care of them, as if they were his own, trying to give them everything they needed. The main character thinks that he will take action if she tells him everything she saw. The girl claims that, first of all, she would like to apologize for making such a noise and butting into something that wasn't her business, but she simply couldn't pass by after hearing the loud cry of a child. When she entered the room, she saw the tutor's cruel treatment of the children. One of them was even injured. So the young lady asks how she could close her eyes to this. The woman just smiles and asks what cruel means, and as she thought the young lady is a gentle child, who knows nothing about raising children, and all this is of course explained by her young age. After all, if everything is as she said, then her methods can be considered very cruel. But she, as an experienced tutor, is quite confident in the correctness of her approach. And, it is better for a beginner not to get into such a whirlpool without experience. Laria understands that this woman thinks that the girl will not distinguish between proper upbringing and simple beating. Although, considering that she never prescribed norms of upbringing children in the novel, it is not surprising that even this can be considered the norm, but she still cannot leave everything as it is. Therefore, the girl tells the woman that perhaps her approach may have an immediate effect, but it also includes excruciating pain. Therefore, is it worth using something like this with children? And isn't it better to explain what their mistake is? The main character claims that she is no longer talking about the fact that they will suffer throughout their childhood and youth, and they will be educated. The girl understands that if you constantly torture a child, he may obey, but then he will do everything to avoid being beaten. As a result, the effect will be completely opposite, and he will start to lie, shift the blame onto others, or simply show aggression. At a young age, children are generally not susceptible to punishment, and by treating them this way, adults will only generate strong self-hatred and even greater disobedience. That's why the blonde says that it's impossible to continue doing this, because it's unlikely that you can achieve obedience through violence. Moreover, all this can negatively affect the psyche of children or even destroy it completely. And she is not even talking about the fact that in the long term, her method will have the opposite effect. The young lady wonders if she managed to convey everything to the Archduke. The brunette claims that the lady is reasoning correctly. However, he cannot agree with all her words. Laria wonders what he is talking about. And the guy continues and says that Molly is a tutor with a good reputation. She has experience gained over the years of active training and education of many noble children who can be assumed to become good and successful people in the future. So he has no doubts about her professionalism. And let the lady not misunderstand him, because it is not because he is not serious about her concern, but simply because Molly, as a professional tutor, could hardly make such an elementary mistake. And the use of corporal punishment has always been considered the norm in the upbringing and education of children, so he sees no reason to worry. But suddenly, a doctor comes up to them and asks what this means. The woman claims that although the gentleman does not have serious wounds, but if you look closely, there are too many bruises and contusions, and he thinks that if she were beaten every day, she would simply stop studying altogether, because in the end, it doesn't matter what she gets beaten for. She asks if such a punishment was really necessary, since the boy was simply holding the cup incorrectly. Molly claims that everything is wrong, and the gentleman made the same mistake several times, so it was necessary to resort to such measures. But the doctor only tells the Archduke to take a look for himself and asks if he, too, thinks that there was an extreme need for something like this. Since there is not a single living spot on the boy's arm, the boy remembers how other adults pressured him. They claimed that the boy should put aside his feelings and glorify the Blackwell family name, and also prove that he is worthy of being called part of the family. He puts his hand on his head and says he's heard enough. Then he tells Frederica to take the children to their room. He also tells Madame that she can leave too, and that she should try to avoid corporal punishment in the future, at least until Mikhail's wounds heal. The woman says that she will do as the Archduke orders, after which the man says that as far as the young lady is concerned, she can breathe a sigh of relief, because he will not hold her responsible for all this, so she can go home with a calm heart. The main character just wonders if the brunette really didn't believe her words because of the tutor's professionalism. When a woman passes by, she pushes her and whispers what a worthless, annoying girl the young lady is, and asks her if she will answer now what happens when you stick your nose where it belongs. The main character turns around and thinks how disgusting this woman is. At this time, the doctor tells the children that he will take them to the room, and Laria thinks that Mikhail must have suffered a lot. The girl understands perfectly well that her actions seem wrong and unnecessary to others. However, seeing how a defenseless child was being beaten, she instinctively rushed to protect him. This was a rebirth. She herself was in his place. When the girl was little, she was often beaten by her older brother Neem Ju Hyun, and, unfortunately, there was no one who could stand up for her. The little girl could only cry, just like poor Mikhail. The girl asked what she had done to deserve such a life, and was she really destined to endure this all her life? She didn't understand why she was born at all, and wanted to throw out her emotions so much that she bestowed such a fate on Mikhail. And because of her, the heroes of her novel were unhappy. Laria became an obsessed psychopath, the children suffered constant beatings, and Nocton became a man no one understood. The main character understands that, having seen the pain her characters had to endure, she felt a strong sense of guilt for what she had done to them. At that moment, she realized that God had most likely sent her there to fix everything and give the heroes of her novel the happy ending they deserve. So the girl cries out, asking his lordship to wait. The girl claims that she does not want to leave without helping the children. She claims that she knows she failed the interview, but begs him to hire her as a nanny. The guy only asks if the girl has a bad memory, because they have already closed this topic, and there is no reason why he should hire a young lady. Then the girl claims that he did not specify the characteristics of a person who would be trusted with children, and she may be ideal, so she asks for a second chance. The young lady says that since they are the children of a man like him, she thought that they would have no problem getting a proper education, so she decided that they probably didn't need a nanny like her at all. However, she was wrong, because judging by what he saw, he desperately needed a nanny, and she is the only one specifically suited for this position. But then the Duke remembers how the girl claimed that if she didn't try, she wouldn't know, and she apparently has a really bad memory. The main character thinks that he speaks correctly, and although she had experience working with children in the past world, but unfortunately, Laria from this world has no experience in this field, so it will be difficult to prove her abilities, and there is no reason to hire a person who has suddenly failed an interview. Therefore, the girl thinks that maybe she should try to use the facts from the novel to make Nocton interested in her candidacy. The young lady turns to the Archduke and claims that even though he himself has been through this and knows how painful it is, does he really want to condemn his own children to the same fate? The guy here furiously asks what she just dared to say. He claims that he was wondering where the young lady got so much confidence from, and it seems she somehow managed to find out about it. He approaches the girl and asks what will happen next, and whether she will start blackmailing him or extorting money. After all, if she really decided on such impudence, then he would finish her off right now. The girl understands that this is a completely expected reaction, because he becomes more sensitive when he is reminded of old events that he would like to forget. And perhaps she can convince him if she turns what she just said to her advantage. The young lady claims that the boy's reaction and the way he acted when he saw the child's wounds showed that he had been taught since childhood that this was normal. And it seems that the Archduke acted this way intentionally so that the children would not become attached to him, because he himself did not receive parental love from the cradle. But you can't do this to children, and you need to lend them a helping hand before it's too late, and then create conditions for the child to grow up in love and care. After all, this is the only way he can grow up and become an independent and strong person without emotional wounds and complexes. The young lady claims that this is her approach to children. She certainly does not have numerous merits like Lady Molly, and given everything that has been said before, she believes that she is best suited for the role of a nanny, and therefore asks him to hire her for this position. The guy is silent for a while, but then, looking at the young lady again, he agrees. He claims that he will see how true her words are, and gives her 2 weeks to do so. If the girl fails to convince him to take her on a permanent basis by that time, she must be prepared for the inevitable consequences. The main character only confidently agrees, and tells him to be sure that she will become a good nanny. A short time later, the maid shows the young lady to her room. She bows and asks to be allowed to introduce herself, and then she claims that she is Mary and will be her personal servant from now on. After which, the maid says that the mistress is probably tired, and if she wants, she can rest there. After which, the maid asks if she should bring some light snacks. The blonde says that it is too early to rest, and then asks if the maid can fulfill one of her requests. The girl understands that after she got the position of a nanny and her own room, she decided to get down to business right away. And the first and most important thing in this matter is to find a common language with children. The young lady greets them and says that her name is Laria Sherwood, and that she will be their nanny for the day. The girl also says that they have met before and asks if they remember. But the kids are just silent, and the main character understands that they are both wary for now. But, however, she knew that it would be like this, so she prepared in advance. The maid asked if the mistress wanted her to prepare lots of snacks, but then said that Molly's tutor had limited the children's snacks to once a week, saying that it was a bad habit. But Laria asked the maid to do her a favor and do it just this once. The girl understood that she also knew very well that frequent snacks are harmful to children's health and can contribute to the formation of unhealthy eating habits. But this is the only way, because eating tasty things together can bring you closer together. The girl claims that she asked to prepare all this so that the kids could enjoy the sweets, so that they could take whatever they wanted and eat without embarrassment. The boy asks if they really can, and the main character says that they are in a really bad mood today, and when that happens to her, she usually eats sweets, so there is nothing wrong with that. And then the girl tells them to hold their cups as they are used to and not to worry about the cookies crumbling because they can just enjoy the tea and the treat. Then the boy takes the cookie and eats it. He says how delicious it is. The main character asks if it is true and says that she also likes oatmeal cookies with chocolate chips because they are cool, after which the lady suggests that she also take a treat. The girl does just that, and the main character says that she tried to choose what they would like. The little girl claims that the treats are not bad, and the young lady turns to Mary and tells her not to stand aside and to eat too. The maid is a little shocked, and when she tries the cookie, she says how delicious it is. The kids look at each other. After that, the main character thinks that she worked very hard all these days so that the children could trust her and open up. Every day, she woke them up gently and carefully, after which they went to breakfast. The girl also attended Molly's classes with them so that she could no longer hit them for anything. Molly continued to teach 5-year-olds as if they were teenagers, and fortunately, after Nocton's words, there was no more corporal punishment. The main character thinks that it became somehow suspiciously calm, and maybe she is just winding herself up, and the woman really realized her mistake. The girl thinks that the moment will soon come when she can officially become a nanny, and being a nanny, she will improve the relationship between the children and Nocton. She will say that children should be hugged tenderly and with love. The girl also plans to help the guy get closer to the main character so that they can have a 100% happy ending. She already imagines how the young man will thank her for the fact that everything turned out well for him. And these two will become a happy family. And since the novel will have a happy ending, she will also be able to live happily somewhere far from them. But now the young lady finds herself locked in a cramped room with the Archduke. The main character thinks that she could not have imagined that her actions would lead to such an outcome. Before that, it was her 10th day of work as a nanny on probation. The young lady asked if the gentleman wanted to sleep at all. She claims that she understands everything perfectly well, because at his age, she also did not want to sleep. But if the boy does not sleep, he will not grow up as healthy and tall as the Archduke. The girl suggests looking at the young lady because she is a fine girl and is already ready for bed. After this, she puts the boy to bed and asks him what to do, and then suggests reading him a bedtime story, because that way he will definitely fall asleep. But the boy only asks her to promise that when he falls asleep, the girl will not go anywhere and will stay in the room. After all, when Laria is not around, Tutor Molly comes and starts saying all sorts of nasty things. The main character asks what he is talking about, and the little girl covers her brother's mouth and screams so that he doesn't dare tell. But the boy claims that he can't, and claims that Molly's tutor gives them some kind of tea every night. Laria is shocked by this, and the boy continues and says that even when they said that they wanted to sing it, the woman still brought it the next day. The little girl then claims that this tea is very strange, and that it is making it difficult for Mikhail to fall asleep. The main character asks if the little ones happen to know what was added to the tea. Janet says it was lemon and mint. Initially, the woman gave this tea to both her and Mikhail, but the baby refused to sing it, and from the mint she hated. So now the woman forces only Mikhail. Molly claimed that this tea was very useful for a growing organism, but since the girl didn't want it, she wouldn't force her. The brunette asked to keep it a secret that she was giving it to them, and claimed that they would see that everyone would be pleasantly surprised by how much the young gentleman had changed thanks to him, because they were also interested in how everyone would react to the changes that had occurred in the young gentleman's body. The young lady understands that this tea only promotes rapid growth of children, so there is no particular point in hiding it. And the little girl asks Mikhail who pulled his tongue, because now they will be scolded. The boy apologizes. A little while later, the main character asks the doctor about everything. Frederica claims that if we talk about lemon and mint tea, then only working evening comes to mind. Laria asks what it is, and the doctor claims that, as the name suggests, this tea is usually drunk by those who need an evening boost of energy, because there are ingredients used there that prevent sleep. Then the girl asks if they drink it instead of coffee, and now she understands why Mikhail can't fall asleep for so long, and all because of this tea. Well, the doctor asks why the girl asked about it. The main character claims that she was simply recommended it. Then she asks if this part can somehow promote growth if given to children. The doctor just jumps up from his chair and tells the young lady not to do that under any circumstances, and to just throw the thought out of her head. Laria claims that she had no intention of doing that at all. And the doctor points to the book and says that some of these strong components put a lot of strain on the heart, so it shouldn't be consumed in large quantities, even by adults, let alone children. After all, this can even provoke cardiac arrest. After this, the main character thinks why Molly did this. She goes into the kitchen and wonders if there is anyone there. The girl understands that when she remembers how the woman beat the children, she involuntarily thinks that the woman could do much worse things, but she would hardly be able to ask the Archduke to interrogate her without having evidence in hand. So now it was better to start looking for clues. But suddenly, someone's voice addresses her from behind. It turns out that he is asking what the girl is doing there. The young lady is a little surprised by this, and the guy claims that he heard a noise from the kitchen, which, as it seemed to him, all the staff had already left and came there. The young man asks if the girl, pretending to be a nanny, wanted to steal from him little by little. The main character claims that this is certainly not the case, but she wonders if the guy will believe her without proof or decide that she is a liar, slandering them all if she tells Nocton the truth. Well, suddenly she hears a noise behind her, and the brunette asks if he should wait forever for an answer. He claims to be asking again what she is doing there, but the young lady only grabs his hand and apologizes, then suggests they discuss the matter later. She drags the brunette along with her, and the guy asks what she's doing since she has plenty of time. Laria, you understand that while she was thinking about what to answer him, it completely slipped her mind that Molly was supposed to arrive soon. A woman comes into the kitchen with a candle and says that it seemed to her that there was definitely someone there. And was it just her imagination? At this time, the Archduke and the main character are in a cramped room. The guy is a little crazy about this. He asks what the young lady is doing, but the girl just covers his mouth with her finger. She whispers that she knows the Archduke is angry, but asks him to be patient for a little while because she will explain everything later. At the same moment, they hear Molly swearing. She, holding a can of tea in her hands, says that if this annoying girl hadn't gotten into someone else's body, she would never have done such a thing, because the girl was constantly hanging around with the children and sitting in class like some kind of annoying fly. Therefore, the woman failed to carry out her original plan, and it is because of her that she has to restrain herself. After all, if she saw that girl punishing the children, she would immediately run to complain to the Archduke. Molly says that they could even kick her out of there, but now she will deal with them in another way, and soon Nocton will be heartbroken because she will destroy him. The woman, pouring out tea leaves, says that initially she only intended to ruin his relationship with the children, but because of one annoying fly, she had to reconsider this plan. And now they will have to take Nocton's children away, forcing him to endure hellish torments. The main character and the Archduke are shocked by this. The young lady immediately opens the door and screams for the woman to stop. Molly, shocked, asks what she is doing there. But Nocton coldly asks if the woman did her dirty deeds right behind his back. Molly tries to justify herself and says that he got it all wrong and in fact, but the young lady does not let her finish and claims that she cannot deceive them. The whole woman began to actively give the children tea called working evening, and because of this, the young gentleman cannot fall asleep for a long time. The main character asks why the woman forced the little child to drink it, because she probably knew about its effect on the child's body. The brunette only angrily asks how the girl managed to find out about this, but she doesn't even know what happened in this estate, because if it weren't for them, her life wouldn't have turned into such shit. Everything would have been fine if that maniacal idiot hadn't done it. By maniacal idiot is meant the Blackwell's genetic disease, passed down through generations. It can manifest itself if Nocton is obsessed with a female representative, so in the novel he had to stay away from girls. But in terms of strength, the appearance of the main character, his symptoms became a little weaker, and the attacks were accompanied by loss of reason, as well as unjustified violence. And he calmed down when many people died. For Nocton, such a reality was like a nightmare. The young lady attributed such a trait to him when she herself was broken. By giving him such a fate, she managed to ease her pain a little. But it looks like her thoughtless actions have caused Sister Molly to suffer, and there could be many more victims. The brunette claims that on the day he had that damn Manic episode, that her sister, who worked there as a maid, witnessed this terrible spectacle. Although she was not physically harmed, her psyche came to an end, and she went off on her own. Molly had to take care of a crazy woman every day. So now she asks if even the guy knows what it was like for her. Because of him, her whole life turned into hell. The woman also asks if he thinks that he bought himself off by giving them his dirty money. After all, this is all damn garbage, and the Archduke is a dirty hypocrite. The guy just starts to get a headache from this, and he puts his hand to his head. And the woman just screams for her old normal life back. Molly Owen. The Archduke is about to say something, but the main character interrupts him. She argues that the woman herself is motivated only by the venting of her own anger, and not by what happened to her sister. A little while before, Tagonichnaya claimed that the lady had received letters. The young lady understood that there were a lot of letters from her family, but then she saw one from Maria Owen and asked who it was. The maid said it was for her, and it must have come into the young lady's hands by accident. The maid claimed that it was her friend who used to work there, but she had to quit due to some circumstances, so they communicated with her like this. Then the girl asked the mistress to read her this letter, because she could not read. The young lady agreed to this, and then she told herself that she was only Mary's friend, but apparently her guess was correct, and the girl was indeed Molly's younger sister. The young lady claims that Lady Maria regularly writes to her friend, that is, her personal maid. And at first Maria really suffered, because she received psychological trauma. However, she decided not to dwell on it and move on. In the letter, she said that her condition had noticeably improved, and she was even thinking about returning to work. Lyria claims that even after experiencing very severe pain, people pull themselves together and find the strength to move on, leaving the past behind. When a person has injuries of any nature, their loved ones become more sensitive to them and sometimes even suffer more than the victims themselves. This is exactly what happened to Molly. However, now Lyria claims that Maria wants to move forward and asks what the woman is trying to take revenge for. But the brunette just raises her hand and asks how the girl even dares to say such a thing. But the main character intercepts her hand and tells Molly not to let anger get the better of her, and asks if the woman doesn't see how Nocton is worried about what happened, and if she thinks that the guy lived there like in a fairy tale while she suffered. The young lady asks if Molly has ever tried to talk to him or just ask for help since she found herself in such a situation, before rushing to take revenge. The girl suggests being honest, because Molly beat the children and was obsessed with her revenge for herself, and sister was just an excuse. But she could have at least taken the trouble to ask how her sister was doing, since she loved her so much that she decided to take revenge, and maybe it was worth talking to her sister after all. In a letter to the maid, Sister Molly wrote that everything was just fine with her now, and thanks to the support of the Archduke, she could attend school and had even learned to write. She claimed that, frankly speaking, when she left the mansion, she thought that she would live in eternal fear. But everything was fine now because she realized in time that she had enough strength to move on. The woman puts her hands on her head and screams that it is too noisy, and then asks if she is doing all this for herself. Then she asks what they could possibly know about her. Molly grabs the knife in her hands and screams that her life is impeccable. It was destroyed because of them, so they must die, after which the woman swings a knife. But the Archduke covers the main character with his body, but at the same moment, knights burst into the room. They scream whether everything is okay with his lordship, and then grab the woman. Molly just screams to be let go, because what a terrible curse they will pass on to the poor children. They will grow up to be monsters just like him. Therefore, Nocton Blackwell does not deserve happiness and must be cursed. It all ended with Molly being kicked out of the mansion and forbidden to even go near him, even if Nocton felt guilty towards her and her sister. He could not forgive her for what she did to the children, so it was decided to kick her out, giving her money as compensation. And 2 weeks have passed since that moment. The young lady felt very sorry because it was all her fault. So the girl thinks it would be fair to send her into this novel so that she could help everyone and fix the situation. Fortunately, everything is slowly getting better now, but there is no guarantee that the future will be bright, because the situation with Molly can repeat itself again. Fortunately, in 10 months, the main character will appear. The girl only needs to maintain a calm atmosphere in the estate until her arrival. Yes, now her goal is the well-being of Nocton and the children. Now the main character asks if she can come in, and the guy claims that yes, it was he who called her, in order for the girl to sign a contract for official employment. After all, during the 2-week probationary period, she proved that she was worthy of this position. The girl can get acquainted with the conditions, and the salary if she is not satisfied with something, then let her speak. The main character is shocked to see that the salary will be 10 times more than what was initially promised. The Archduke states that he would like to tell her something before making a decision, and then says that a seizure that is dangerous to his mental and physical health could happen to him at any moment. And he leads to the fact that the girl may suffer because of him if she agrees to work here. Yunsha claims that he should have told her about this when he signed the temporary contract, but he didn't have the courage to do so, so he left it for later. The Archduke claims that he is ready to accept any decision she makes, and that a refusal due to such an upset of the employer is even more reasonable. The young lady noticed that Nocton's voice trembled slightly at the end. She looks at the young man and thinks that this disease is a shame for him, and it is most likely very difficult for the guy to tell strangers about it. Because of this, he was called a monster all his life, and people said nasty things behind his back. Under his thick, lowered eyelashes, deep violet eyes filled with sadness are visible. The main character did not want to make him wait for long, so she spoke. The girl claims that before giving an answer, she would also like to tell the Archduke something, and in fact, she decided to get a job with him without the knowledge of her family because she wanted to escape from there, because she was treated badly there. The young lady told Nocton about everything that Laria had to endure in her home. In this world, there is a law that states that an unmarried girl is the property of her father until she gets married, and the father can return his daughter home even against her will. And the girl in this world is a commodity that parents are trying to sell as profitably as possible. The young lady claims that she was unable to tell him about it earlier, so she apologizes. And if he refuses to hire her after this, then she will understand him and accept this decision. The young man claims that he is well aware of this law, according to which girls are first the property of their fathers, and then of their husbands. However, he asks if the lady doesn't know that he is much higher than all these laws, and if his children can have such a good nanny like her. Then he won't allow her family to harm this in any way, and even before the end of the contract, she won't be able to leave his mansion so easily. The main character just smiles and asks if she can leave the young master and mistress. Eventually, she managed to become the Blackwell family's nanny. Now she tells the young lady to be careful, because if she runs so fast, she will fall. But then she turns to Mary and asks if something has happened, since there have been a lot of workers there lately. The maid claims that it seems that the lady has not yet been told about this, but every year at this time a luxurious reception is held in the mansion, which is why a large number of people were attracted. The young lady is a little shocked by this. She turns to the maid and asks if there will be a luxurious reception. Mary claims that the empire is the concentration of forces of the entire continent, and that it is controlled by two forces. The first is the imperial family, which took over the management of the internal affairs and economy of the empire. And the second is the Blackwell family, responsible for diplomatic relations and security of the country. Each of the families has its own faction that does not intersect with the other, and thanks to equal rights, they have maintained peace in the empire for a long time. However, the Blackwell family is different from the imperial family. These she stopped interacting with the aristocracy, and in order to once again strengthen her position among them, every spring a sumptuous banquet is held. Now the maids dress up the young master and mistress, and the main character understands that Nocton plans to introduce the children at this banquet. Mikhail says that for some reason, Laria is in a bad mood, and the girl claims that the young lady is probably worried. The main character just thinks why she is so uneasy, because this is a simple banquet for aristocrats. But then she remembers that the Sherwood family will also attend this banquet, so the girl would really like to miss this event. The main character also understands that around this time, Laria falls in love with Nocton. The girl understands that her family will easily find her if she appears with the children at the event, because these angels will definitely attract a lot of attention. Suddenly, the maid turns to the mistress and asks if she can tell what she doesn't like about the design of the clothes, because the girl sighed so heavily. She tells the main character that there is nothing like that, She realizes that she has been so preoccupied with her family problems that she has lost touch with reality, so she decides to think about solving this problem later. The young lady points to one of the designs and says that she likes everything, but it would be nice to make some changes. The maids ask what kind, and Laria asks if they know that the children are 5 years old. Unfortunately, this design is not very convenient for children of this age. After all, for such a dress, you will need a corset, and you will also need to shorten the sleeves and the dress itself, because the child could accidentally step on the hem and fall. And the main character also asks, how about changing one more thing? The maid is delighted by this and asks how the mistress came up with this, because it's brilliant. The blonde claims that she was only thinking about the children's comfort, and there is nothing special about it. The young lady adds in her thoughts that as a person who came from the 21st century, she is a little embarrassed to receive praise for such trifles. The maid only says that the mistress could have said something like that they should do as they want and only do their direct duties. But the young lady was so caring that she helped them and provided the children with comfortable clothes. She claims that the lady is simply incredible because she saved the children from an evil woman named Molly. The maid continues to talk, and at this time a good idea comes to the young lady. The main character asks Mary if she can ask the maid for something. After all, she would like to borrow her uniform for the banquet. The maid asks why, mistress. She has already ordered the dress. But the young lady insists that she needs exactly what the maid is wearing. A little while later, the banquet begins. Janet and her brother introduce themselves to the guests. The aristocrats say how cute the children are. They also greet the young gentleman and lady and state that they are pleased to meet them and that the clothes suit the little ones very well. The boys look at each other and think that Laria is watching them and wondering if they tried hard enough. The main character is standing on the balcony at this time. She thinks that the kids are great because they both tried hard. A little while ago, the maid asked the young lady if she wanted to disguise herself. Laria claimed that it was true because she didn't want to be seen by the family that would most likely be attending the banquet, so she needed Mary's help. After this, the main character came to the children and asked if they had already been told that the little ones would have to attend the banquet. The boy claimed that they had been told about it long before Laria's arrival. And to be honest, at first he resisted and did not want to go there at all. But now he is not afraid at all because Laria will be nearby. The girl thinks that the young master trusts her so much, and she is very touched by this. And the little girl just chuckles and says that even if Laria weren't around, she would still go there. And the young lady understands that Jeanette is still wary of her. But that's okay, because if she continues in the same spirit, sooner or later the girl will open up to her too. The main character says that they will be alone there, and she would like to play a game with them. The kids are interested in this, and the young lady claims that during the event she will disguise herself and they will have to find her in the crowd. The little girl asks if this is some kind of hide and seek. Laria says that it is, and also that there will be one important task in the game, because you have to greet the guests properly, keeping their posture straight and following etiquette, and if they can handle it all and find her, they can ask for any gift, after which the main character asks if they want to play with her, and the kids say what they want, and at the event they behave appropriately. The main character thinks that she really wanted to stand with them and help them at their first appearance in public. But the best thing she can do is let them adapt to everything themselves. But at least she helped by starting this game. This way they will have fun and will be able to adapt on their own. A couple of aristocrats are whispering among themselves. One of them claims that it seems that the rumors are rallying her since the Archduke is now in good health, as the woman claimed that they should not rush to conclusions because they do not know anything for sure. The man, asking if the woman thinks that he would officially represent the children if he is unwell. And this is nonsense, because the Duke is completely healthy and who even decided that he almost died. The main character is shocked by such words, but suddenly a very familiar voice addresses her, and the girl realizes that it is her brother. The guy asks if she could get him another glass of wine. The young lady apologizes and says that she is not responsible for drinks and hopes that he did not notice her. And the young man asks if the maid can then ask the one who is responsible for them and thinks what kind of answer this is. The main character understands that she needs to hurry up and get out of sight before he realizes it's her. But then the guy tells her to wait, because the girl has a familiar voice, and asks if she knows Laria by any chance. But the young lady just shoves the tray in his face. The guy, shocked, asks what she's doing, but the main character runs away and screams that she knows no Laria. The young man says that he didn't even have time to pronounce the name, and the girl immediately realized that it was Laria. So he asks if his sister thinks that her words sound true. The main character screams that she is telling him the purest truth, and the guy asks why she is running away then. And besides, he does not remember that the maids were allowed to lighten their hair like that. The blonde asks the girl if he thinks he didn't recognize her. Laria wonders why she was discovered so quickly. And isn't everything supposed to work out well for the villains in a novel? The guy will ask her not to run away because they need to talk. But the young lady doesn't listen to him and turns the corner. The girl thinks about what she should do and whether she should just go into the first room she comes across and lock the door. Well, then Norman will bring her parents. Suddenly, someone grabs the young lady by the arm and drags her. Her brother jumps out from around the corner and screams for Laria to stop running and talk to him. But then he sees that there is no one in the corridor anymore. When the young man passes by the next room, he sees that the door there is open, and also his sister's glasses are lying on the floor. The young man immediately bursts into the room and screams that he knows his sister is there. But what he sees there confuses him, and the guy immediately closes the door and also screams an apology for disturbing him. The main character was in the room with the Duke. A little while ago, when the banquet was just beginning, the Archduke was sitting at his place. He thought that at a banquet there is everything that always music, gently enveloping the ears, a little bitter wine, and the main thing without which no reception takes place. It is a nobleman to climb, and that he cannot allow himself to say or do anything unnecessary. The young man thinks how tired he is of all this, and at that moment a lady approaches him. She says that his lordship's complexion is not very good. The guy replies that it is due to lack of sleep, and it is nothing. The man next to him says that soon the day of hunting for the flying Mishas will come, and his lordship must be excited. Well, his grand plan to catch them is about to begin, and he understands the master's worries. The woman asks if such things should not be said in a whisper, and the man cries out that it is obvious that victory is already in their pocket, and does she think that the bats, having heard the rumors, hide in the corners? He also asks if the Archduke thinks the same. The protagonist replies that if you think about it, wasn't their plan revealed in the past, because the man was chatting about it at every turn. And what's more, they haven't even started yet, so he thinks it's too early for a toast. After this, an awkward atmosphere hangs in the air, and the woman decides to break it. The lady argues that, in truth, before doing anything, the Archduke should have acquired a wife. The young man is with his husband and does not want to drink this wine, so he puts his glass back. He understands that he only pricked them a couple of times, and not much. They decided to start with heavy artillery right away. One of the guests says that if you compare them with the imperial couple, who are already married, then from the point of view of the inhabitants of the empire, they will become very successful. The protagonist thinks that if it were up to him, he would get rid of all these old foxes. But then he sees Laria running out of the hall, so the protagonist rises from his seat and says that he will probably go. The woman asks if his lordship is leaving already, but the young man claims that it seems his maid is going to run away before the end of the contract. All his interlocutors are a little surprised by such an answer, and now the main character is with the Archduke. The young lady pushes him back and asks if the guy has gone crazy, and is it possible to appear like a jack-in-the-box and grab the lady in an armful. The guy claims that he saved the girl from the fate of being forcibly seen and asks if this is her gratitude. He tells the lady with a serious look that he would like to take this opportunity to make her an interesting proposal, and then he asks if she wants to get engaged to him. But suddenly, the young lady's brother knocks on the door. He screams that he knows that Laria's inside, and that's why he's going to come in now. The main character only asks the guy why he suddenly asked her about the engagement, and suggests that the guy let her go first and then talk. The young man claims that, as he thought, explanations are needed, and Laria thinks that he did not propose to Togoni for this reason, and of course they are needed. The guy claims that the young lady must have heard rumors about the Archduke's imminent death. The main character says that she heard about it today in the banquet hall, but this is simply ridiculous. So the young lady asks how this is connected to the engagement, and the guy says that then she probably knows too. That the root of these rumors is the imperial family, because unlike the imperial family, having produced a crown prince through an early marriage, the Blackwell family is an interesting catch in the eyes of a gossip-loving society. Thus, rumors spread that Archduke Blackwell's mind had been shaken, and these rumors, passing from mouth to mouth, grew like a snowball. Thus, rumors appeared about the imminent death of the Archduke and the collapse of the Archduchy. Laria asks if it works. In order to show society that the Blackwell family is doing well, and to save her from the attacks of the Sherwood family, the guy suggests that they get engaged. The young man replies that he likes the way Laria grasps everything on the fly. The main character's brother, listening to all this, is a little surprised. He thinks, what does it mean that the Archduke likes it when she grabs him, and what is this all about? The guy thinks that the brunette could seduce his sister and persuade her to become a maid, so he immediately screams that he will really come in and counts to 3. The main character asks the brunette if her brother heard her conversation, and the guys answer that, because of the thickness of the doors, it was almost impossible to hear everything in detail. But then her brother starts the countdown. The young lady thinks that she should stay there and help Nocton, and then he will have a better chance of a happy ending. And if she returns to the Sherwood family now, her life as Laria will become unpredictable. The girl understands that even if this is not what she wanted, she says that she agrees. The guy smiles in response and says that it is great. He then smears lipstick on her lips and says that from the moment they leave this room, they will become loving souls who enjoyed a secret meeting. After that, the main character opens the door. Her brother asks if she has finally decided to meet her brother. But when he sees her face red with embarrassment, he asks what happened to her. The main character tells him to just pretend he didn't see anything, because he's already disturbed her. Laria claims that she was supposed to take care of the young mistress and master, but fearing that the family would recognize her, she disguised herself. However, her brother outdid himself and prevented even her secret meeting with her lover. The blonde screams that she is lying again and that it is all nonsense, because in reality, the girl does not want to come back, and that is why she is lying. But the father was also very angry, so they should come back immediately. He grabs the young lady by the hand and screams at her to resist and follow him. But the Archduke approaches them. He claims he sent the young lady first because she said she would handle things herself, but he never thought that his bride would be treated like this. Her brother, shocked, asks if the Archduke wants to say that Laria is really his bride. The brunette claims that this is true and asks if there is any problem with this, since he is well aware of the Sherwood family's disdain for the ladies, and he defends her as a groom. The brothers ask the Archduke for forgiveness, but says that even if they are engaged, then his sister is still a member of the Sherwood family, and by imperial law, a bride can only be considered a member of the groom's family if both families agree to the union. The young man squeezes his sister's parts in pain and says that therefore the engagement that took place with the entire participation of the Sherwood family, according to the rules, should not take place. But suddenly, he cries out in pain, and it turns out that the Archduke grabbed him by the wrist. The guy claims that, therefore, the Sherwood family respects the Blackwells, but apparently does not want to accept him as a son-in-law, and this turns out to be a little funny. The young lady's brother is very frightened by this, and then says that everything is wrong and apologizes. At this time, a servant approaches a man in a robe. He apologizes and says that they finished the work later than planned. The stranger only asks if the preparations are complete, and the servant replies that yes, and as soon as the main ceremony begins, they will continue as planned. The man says that this is good, and they can return to their places and also be ready, after which the servant leaves, and the stranger thinks that the night is dark today, and it is just right for the Blackwell family to fall. At this time, the Archduke continues his conversation with the main character's brother. He says that if the young man understood everything, then let him tell his parents, and they will probably go. The brother shouts for Laria to wait, because he still has something to tell her. The Archduke only asks if everyone in the Sherwood family has a bad memory, because he thought he explained it clearly. The brother claims that he, of course, understood everything, but asks to be allowed to talk to his sister. The main character turns to his lordship and asks if he will leave them for a while, because, as her brother said, they have not finished their conversation yet, and if something happens, she will immediately call the Archduke. Then the young man agrees and says that he will wait nearby, and if he is needed, then let the young lady call him. The brother thanks Laria and says that now that he knows that the girl is the Archduke's bride, he will not forcibly take her home, but let her not announce her engagement at this reception. The main character asks why she shouldn't do that, and the young man claims that some nobles who support Blackwell want to go over to the side of the imperial family, and there were rumors that something was going to happen at this reception. But there could be a villain hiding in the hall, and if they find out that the girl is the Archduke's bride, this could put her in danger, so the sister should be careful. The young man claims that he just wanted to tell her this, and that's why he delayed. But now he has to go. Laria is a little surprised, because Norman, who didn't care about her, is worried. The girl wonders if he is trying to make amends in this way, but then she thinks that it is a little strange. The young lady thinks that considering Noctin's character, he is using their engagement at an opportune time. Also, the guy is unlikely to introduce her to Tigoni as his bride today, out of the blue. But the girl wonders if Noctin knows that there may be people in the mansion who want to harm him. So the girl turns to the Archduke. The guy asks what happened, and the young lady tells him to just imagine what would have happened if he had heard that a bad person had entered the mansion. The young man claims that he now understands what his brother told Laria. Then he says that this is his mansion, and asks how he cannot know that a rat has got in. The young man says that making the traitors think that they have an advantage, and hiding the fact that he knows about everything is some kind of plan, and the villains have no idea that they have fallen into their own trap. The main character asks if this means anything. In order to catch the traitors by surprise and catch them, the Archduke deliberately allowed dangerous people to enter the mansion. The guy asks what's so special about that, because the knights of the Blackwell family also disguised themselves and blended in with the crowd, so there is no need to worry about safety. But the girl cries out that the young lady and the master are also there, despite the fact that the knights are monitoring the situation. But what will the guy do if something happens to them, and now is not the time to chill? The main character asks who the girl takes him for, because they quickly find out who they are as soon as they enter the banquet hall. The young lady claims that such disregard for safety leads to accidents, and he, as a father, should be ashamed of his indifferent attitude towards the safety of his children. The young lady extends her hand and says that if he feels even a little bit ashamed, then let him go with her to the banquet hall right now. The kids are among the nobility at this time. The girl asks where Laria is, because she keeps looking around and does not see her. But Michael tells Janet to look at the stairs. And when they do this, they see Laria walking with the Archduke. People immediately start whispering. One woman says that the Archduke himself is accompanying the young lady, and she is seeing her for the first time. The woman also asks if anyone knows who this lady is. The main character thinks that she came with Noctin, so all eyes are now on her. The rumors continue. One of the people says that it is immediately obvious that the girl wants to seduce the Archduke, so she stuck to him. Another man claims that the girl wants to raise her status at the expense of such a man, and this may be a woman's despair. Although there are many parents who are ready to sell their child to a richer man, they claim that there is no benefit from the girl, so they probably just threw her away. The main character is a little depressed, but then Mikhail and Jeanette turn to her. The young lady approaches them, and the boy says that a little earlier he found a person with the same hair color as her, and the little girl claims that she immediately guessed that it was not Laria. The main character thinks that she is very lucky to have met children so quickly, because she almost cried in public. But the young lady wonders how Noctin is going to identify the traitors among all these people. A little while later, everyone is already sitting down at the table. The Archduke says that spring has come again, and he is glad to meet again with the distinguished guests. However, the opposing forces that were in hibernation have woken up again and made a fuss, and the guests must have heard the rumor of the fall of the Blackwell family. The young man asks if they also think that he has gone mad and is incapable of fulfilling his duty. Or maybe they think that he is mocking the servants, because if so, then according to his hearing, he does have limbs to simply run away if necessary. He asks to let people see the whole truth about the Blackwell family, and then looks at the main character. The girl thinks if he is asking her to stand up now. The Archduke only takes her hand and says that if he had gone mad, he would never have been able to love such a beautiful and graceful creature who had so suddenly invaded his life. The main character is shocked by this, and her parents are also worried about it. The young lady's brother just sighs heavily, and the main character thinks that she, too, didn't know that the Archduke would say such a thing. The young man just hugs her and says that he imagines a girl who has sworn to love him as much as he loves her until the end of time. Then he shouts for everyone to greet Lady Laria Sherwood. The young lady thinks that he did say he would announce it later. Everyone at the table claps and praises the Blackwell family. Laria thinks that, in a word, Nocton has proclaimed her the future Archduchess. The girl thinks that the expressions on people's faces changed like pictures in a movie, and the emotions were different. The parents, who simply could not believe it, were a little scared, and Norman was clearly concerned about her safety. Someone was genuinely happy for the bright future of the Blackwell family, and someone else had an expression on their face as if they had hit the jackpot. But suddenly, the young lady notices something strange. After all, this guy looks up and smiles, but when the main character raises her head, she immediately understands what is happening. She pushes the Archduke aside, and at the same moment, a chandelier falls onto the spot where he was standing. The main character ends up in the hands of the Archduke. The girl tells his lordship to protect the children. At this time, a guy comes up to them from behind and thinks that some woman jumped out and interfered with him, but he thinks that it doesn't matter. After all, he needs to take advantage of the situation and attack the Archduke, otherwise he definitely won't have time to react. The brunette only screams out Bernil's name, and then the knight does not let the villain do what he planned. The servant claims that he did not think that it would go this far. He asks for your forgiveness from his lordship. Bernil Taesbeg is the second in command of the Blackwell family knights, and he says he never imagined that someone would attack his master in such a way. The young man claims that he wanted to remove the weeds later because the preparation took a long time. However, given the current situation, this must be done first. At that very moment, knights enter the room and lay down on the ground all those involved in this crime. The Archduke says that 2 accounting books were found in the estate of Baron Barnes, and one of them, of course, was counterfeit, and it is according to it that the man reports to them. Br Unet says Earl Bradley also committed atrocities in the form of long-term tax evasion and drug smuggling, and the Marquis Franklin was involved in the slave trade and illegal arms trade, and others are also guilty of atrocities. Therefore, the Archduke says that the aristocrats, who were supposed to set an example, behave worse than any rabble, and it seems they have decided to finally hit rock bottom by making an attempt on the life of Lady Sherwood. The young man holds the main character in his arms, and the nobles ask how the guy dares to reproach them with this if he himself is not so pure. They also ask if he thinks that no one knows what a psycho he is who wants to kill everyone left and right. The Archduke claims that pride really destroys a person, and having decided to sting him even more, they went and gave themselves away. And since they heard the confession, the aristocrats will be punished to the full extent of the empire, bypassing the court. The Baron asks his lordship to wait, but Nocton only approaches all the other guests. He tells them to listen to him. After all, are the words of aristocrats really true if a person in his right mind decided to protect a psycho like him and even sacrificed himself for this? With your life. He tells the guests to always trust only their eyes, because thanks to them, people today were able to see that the Blackwell family is still as powerful as before, and they should also listen to their hearts, because only thanks to them will they be able to distinguish black from white. People immediately kneel and praise the Blackwell family and swear eternal loyalty to the family. A little while later, the main character opens her eyes, but the first thing she sees is her mother and brother. The blonde asks how the girl feels. Laria is hot and wonders what her family is doing there, and when she gets up, she sees a wound in my hand. Her mother claims that the doctor said that the girl dislocated her wrist when she fell, but the main character only asks what they are all doing in her room. Then the father turns around and says that he is very disappointed in Laria. He also asks how the girl dared to tarnish the impeccable reputation of the Sherwood family. The main character asks what he is talking about and if she did anything that could tarnish the family's reputation. After all, if it is because of the engagement with the Archduke, then she can explain everything. The girl says that her father knows without her that if engaged people begin to live together, then this means, but her father does not let her finish her sentence and says that everything is correct. But he is more worried that she apparently did not even bother to think with her head before accepting the offer of the Archduke. The father asks if the girl thinks that with her knowledge of tea drinking and embroidery, she can marry a man from the highest echelons of power. And did she think at least a little bit, after all, aristocrats are not so simple. The father asks if the girl thinks that she can match the Archduke, having no knowledge of his world, because first of all, society will destroy her, and then her family will follow. He tells the girl to stop acting like a spoiled brat and go home, and then orders his son to get the cart ready because they are leaving. Well, suddenly a voice addresses them and asks if he understood correctly that the guys want to take Laria. It turns out it's a baby! She screams that the girl is her nanny, and they won't move her from the meat until the baby gives them her consent to do so. Young lady's father just leans over to the little girl and says that he is glad that the young lady has fallen in love with his daughter so much. However, by law, he has every right to take her away from there. But the Archduke appears from behind and asks how long the man plans to hide behind the law and hope that he understands that he himself is breaking it. After all, the young lady's father has completely forgotten that Laria has made a contract with him, and the law, as I recall, states that in such a case he has no right to take her. And the girl has been there for quite a long time, but they only realized it now, so the guy asks if they are planning something behind his back, because if they wanted to return the young lady so much, then they should have done it on the day of her arrival there. And he was also interested in whether they were interested in what Laria herself wanted, because he had already understood that they did not do this, so he will take care of it himself. The young man turns to Laria and asks if she would like to return home with her family. The main character only says with a serious expression on her face that she does not want to return at all, and this makes her relatives seem to turn to stone. When they leave, the Archduke asks if the young lady is okay. The girl says yes, and asks what happened, and more importantly, if the children are okay. The brunette says that the children are fine, and the girl does not have to worry about them, because their protection was, and still is, the primary task of the knights. They failed to catch the organizer of the assassination attempt, but everyone involved has already been caught, so his capture is only a matter of time. The girl says that, if so, then that's good. But the young man then apologizes. He says that if he had not introduced her as his bride and kept her close to him, then Laria would not have suffered. He gets up from his seat and says that since she suffered because of him, he will give her an indefinite leave so she cannot worry about work and have a proper rest. But the girl claims that, on the contrary, it was he who saved her, because when she pushed him, the guy grabbed her by the waist and pulled her towards him. And if it weren't for that, the young ladies would hardly have been able to sit there and talk to him with a smile on their faces. But she will still think carefully about whether to forgive him for announcing the engagement without her consent. The young man ruffles her hair and says that it's enough chatter and the girl should rest. And it's time for him to work, after all. Laria says that she seems to have embarrassed the Archduke because he ran away, flashing his heels. Mikhail, however, turns excitedly to the young lady. Then the girl asks if the young gentleman is okay, because he was probably very scared. But the boy only asks if Laria is okay. The girl tells him not to worry because she is fine. But then Jeanette turns to the young lady and asks her to tell her if she is on their side. The main character is a little puzzled by this question and asks what the girl means. The little girl says that she protected them from Molly, and today she even saved her father. Laria thinks that she finally understands why it was so difficult to win Janet over. After all, since childhood, she became the protector of her vulnerable brother so that no one could hurt him, and the 5-year-old child had to close his heart. Because all adults seemed as cruel to her as Molly, the main character realizes that as a child, she was the same as her. Only she didn't have someone to protect, and the words flew from her lips before the girl had time to think about the answer. The blonde says that everything is exactly like that, and she will always be on their side. For Janet, this meant that she could now relax and not treat everyone around her with suspicion. And she can behave like a normal child, because Laria protected them. The little girl immediately runs up to the main character in tears and says that she was very worried about her when she got hurt, and then they wanted to take her home. Laria thinks that perhaps deep down, she wanted to be the person for Janet that she needed as a child. That's why she says she'll never abandon the kids. But a little while later, she is in the Archduke's office. The guy asks how she feels, and the young lady thanks him for his concern and replies that she is already better, and she thinks that next week she will take off the bandage. The young man claims that this is good, and he called her in order to talk about their engagement, because after the dinner party, many were interested in who the young lady was and how they met. But they can't be unprepared. The young lady claims that if someone hadn't suddenly decided to announce an engagement without asking her, then they could resolve this issue without any rush. But first, she suggests sorting out the separation clause. The guy, shocked, asks what she said and what she means by breaking up. But the main character only says that if one of them has a loved one, then for the sake of each other, they can break up. The young lady realizes that, just like in the novel, Nocton will definitely meet the main character and fall in love with her at first sight. But if then her existence will somehow interfere, then the guy can go against her, so it's better to prepare for everything. The blonde says that Nocton will be in a difficult position if he later meets someone he truly loves, so she would like them to clarify this point. The young man agrees and says that he understood. And after a little while, the girl says that she thinks that this is enough. They refuse to go to the interview. She will fry the account of the first meeting. They have a script according to which they must speak. The brunette says that they have decided on that. But what about the nanny job? Now they don't have a permanent tutor, and he thinks that it will be difficult for the young lady alone. The blonde says that everything is fine, and it is not that difficult to manage too. And she thinks that it would be nice if the Archduke changed his attitude towards them. The young man already asks what is wrong with his attitude, but the girl claims that when she first came there, the children were afraid of him, and if he was more kind to them, then the baby would open up to him. The Archduke asks what kindly means, since he treats them so well. He always makes sure that they are dressed only in good clothes, and they fed them quality food. Laria says it's good in a material sense. She asks him to treat them more kindly than they do emotionally. The girl wonders if Nocton asked what the kids did today, and also whether he praised them for studying hard and offered to play together. The boy claims no and asks if this is a problem. And then the main character asks if it's difficult for him to communicate with children. The guy is silent for a while, and then asks what he should do, since he hasn't even spoken properly to any children. But the young lady tells him to start smiling. Nocton doesn't understand what she's talking about, and the girl says that if it's hard for him, then let him start by smiling while talking to them. After all, he probably never smiled in front of them, and that's probably why they're afraid of him. And as far as the girl remembers, his smile is rather strange. The young man only says that he has never been told anything like that and asks what is wrong with his smile. Laria only sighs and asks who can say what kind of face the Archduke himself has. Then she smiles and tells him to try smiling like this, as if drawing an arc with the corners of his lips. It will be difficult at first, but he will definitely seem kinder in the eyes of their children. The guy claims that he didn't know they needed something like that, and then he finally decides to smile. And while doing this, he asks if he can do it. But the main character is only scared by such a smile. She thinks what to do, because this grin is even worse than the one she saw at the reception. The guy puts his hands on his head and says that he knew it wouldn't work out, but the young lady says that he just doesn't have enough experience, so he shouldn't be embarrassed, because it's not that bad. The young man asks when he was embarrassed, and the girl replies that she must have misunderstood. After that, they tried it again, and Nocton agreeing to practice smiling was a bit of a surprise to the girl. The young lady thinks that he must also have a desire to be affectionate with someone. Laria wonders if the possibility of Nocton becoming a gentle person means that this story could break out of the confines of a fatal romance and have a happy ending. A short time later, the Archduke caught the culprit of this incident. He claimed that the decoration on the Viscount's neck must be an excellent collector's item. And although this is a Viscount's estate, there are so many precious stones as if it were an emperor's palace, and he must have worked hard to collect them. Or, more accurately, it would be better to say that he worked hard, stealing military supplies from the Archduchy and selling them to the enemy. He throws the jewelry in front of Viscount Waldman's face. The young man asks what the ex-duke is talking about. After all, he will have to answer for all this, and how can one act like this without having evidence? But Nocton says that there is something in which the young man is mistaken, because he is not the only one who is capable of sending a spy to the enemy. After which, he throws the papers at the Viscount and says, according to the report of his man, that a whole collection of novels would not be enough to tell about all the crimes that the Viscount committed. But the theft of military supplies and their sale to enemy countries is just the tip of the iceberg. There was also the slave trade and drug import. And the most terrible thing is that he tried to harm the Archduke. And as Nocton Blackwell, who is the sword that protects the Empire, orders, execute Viscount Waldman for the crimes he committed. The man only smiles as he lies on the ground and says that the Archduke is truly ridiculous. After all, he acts as if he's punishing a criminal, but in reality he's taking revenge on him for trying to kill him. And they both know what this whole masquerade is all about. Waldman asks how someone who carries out personal vengeance under the guise of law and presents a ball to the neck of an enemy in the middle of the night differs from someone who is united by money and power. But the Archduke only tells Bernil to hand over the sword, and then claims that the Viscount is only a loyal pawn of the imperial family. But the man asks if the Archduke thinks that all this will end when he dies. The guy screams furiously that the Blackwell family will go and his will be fulfilled. When the main character swings his ball, the Viscount's last words are a glorification of Emperor Gunton. A little while later, the knight, walking down the corridor, thinks how much time it will now take to sort out the Viscount's possessions and property. After all, their master works so much, but he does more and more. Well then, another knight asks if the deputy commander saw the commander's expression after the execution. The young man wondered how the emperor had managed to make the Viscount so loyal, while the Archduke, after the execution, only smiled, wiping drops of red liquid from his face. The deputy commander asks what his colleague is talking about and whether the Archduke was smiling. After this, he asks if their master is so serious that a total war with the emperor is coming. The Archduke, meanwhile, is sitting in his room with a mirror in his hands. He is practicing his smile again. In fact, he simply did not waste time and practiced smiling sweetly. A short time later, the emperor was informed through a magic ball that Viscount Waldman had also been executed, and that total war with the Archduke was inevitable. His Majesty only smiles and says that if they destroy this monster before it starts, they will not suffer any losses. The young lady understands that enough time has passed for all the children's wounds to heal and heal, after which she began to gradually educate them using her methods. She gave the children a piece of paper with circles drawn on it. Mikhail said it looked nice and asked what it was. But the little girl just doesn't understand what's beautiful about it, and the main character claims that it's a checklist of good behavior. And if they do good deeds or listen to her attentively, then the girl will put seals on them. Janet asks why they need to collect these seals at all, and the young lady says that if they can collect all the seals, then she will fulfill any of their wishes. The kids are very interested in this. Mikhail asks if Luria can really fulfill any wish. The girl replies that everything is true. She will only fulfill those wishes that she can. The boy says that it is very cool and hugs Luria. And the girl just says that it's stupid. But since Mikhail liked it and wants to try it, then so be it. She'll keep him company. The main character understands that the little girl still can't be honest with herself. The young lady understands that an important detail is, of course, the reward with which it will be possible to direct children in the right direction, and they are divided into two main categories. These are material ones, which may include sweets or pocket money, and emotionally, it's joy for being able to collect all the seals and receive praise from an adult. At first, it may seem that there is nothing special in this approach, but this is not so. Because although at first children usually worry about the material part of the issue, over time, the emotional component begins to prevail. The girl thinks that this is a classic approach to preschoolers in her world, but here she is using this method for the first time, so she is wondering if it will be possible to implement it here. The maid, looking at the paper, says that it is impressive, because she has never heard of a system where if you do a good deed or are obedient, you get a seal. She also asks the lady if such a thing came to mind, because it is amazing. The main character asks what she is talking about, and then claims that she has simply been thinking a lot about how to raise her children well. Also been interested in pedagogy since childhood. The maid says that she is simply surprised that the mistress has not yet become the best educator in the world, because with her knowledge and approach, it is quite possible. However, a little while later, something happened that neither she nor Mary expected at all. The maid asks the master if he had just shared his water with the flower. The young man replies that yes, he simply thought that the plant was very thirsty, so he decided to share some with it. The main character and the maid are touched by this. They say that the young master is so caring towards the little flower. And with people, he will most likely be even kinder, so the young ladies are very happy about this. After all, this means that when the boy grows up, he will be a good person. The maid says that the mistress can put a seal on him for this, because the young master deserves it. Mikhail asks if it's true that he will be given the stamp, but then the girl jumps forward and asks why only her brother will get the stamp. The blonde thinks that she did not foresee this, and if she puts the seal only on Mikhail, then Janet will most likely be upset. But if she doesn't deliver, then it will be unfair, because the boy fulfilled the conditions she set. Therefore, the girl says that she will put one seal on the young master, and the boy is very happy about this. And the little girl asks why he alone will get the seal, since she wants it too. The main character strokes her head and says that she will put a seal on the young lady when she fulfills the conditions for receiving the seal. The little girl pouts in response to this. But a little while later, she approaches Laria and claims that she is also watering the plants, so she should also get a stamp. The maid asks if the girl watered all the plants in the mansion, and the main character thinks that she doesn't know if this is due to the fact that she is older, but the girl seemed to be deliberately trying to outdo Mikhail's actions in scale. This is certainly an unusual approach to the matter, but it is certainly a kind act. Laria says that the young lady will put a seal. Then the girl is very happy about this seal, and the young lady thinks whether she made the right decision, because she already doubts that it was worth entering this checklist. A little while later, Michael was eating his cookie, but suddenly he noticed another boy looking at him as if he also wanted this treat. Then Michael approached the baby and told her that the boy was probably hungry, so let him take it. His father approached and told the master that he could not take it because he was a simple servant. But Mikhail insists that everything is fine and that the boy should not be afraid, and that he should rather take it because it is a gift. The two bowed to the boy and thanked him for such a generous gift. But a little while later, Janet was already knocking on this boy's door, and then she pointed to the ear behind her and claimed that it was all for him. The main character understands that in the end it all turned out to be a competition for the extraction of seals. The boys competed with each other, and the girl thought that it seemed like they wouldn't stop until someone emerged victorious. At this time, a boy behind him brings gifts to his uncle and says that he was given so much today, and he is sure that it was the holy agents who tried. The man, with tears in his eyes, says that the boy is right, and Saint Agents decided to bless him. And the baby is just a lucky one, so he should appreciate it. The main character thinks that she, of course, doubted for a long time, but to think that the method is still good, after all, the children made someone happy. The girl also wonders when Nocton will return. And a little while later, the servants were already greeting their master. The main character had already observed the reaction of the kids. Mikhail greeted his father, although his voice trembled a little, but the girl understood that there was progress after all. Now Mikhail no longer cried from fear at the sight of Nocton. The Archduke asks if everything was okay, and Laria says that everything was okay with the young lady and the master. Then the guy asks how things were with her. The main character doesn't understand what he's talking about, and the young man repeats and says that he asked if everything was okay with Laria. The girl understands that he returned from a long business trip, and first of all asked if everything was okay with the nanny and not with the children. But then she realizes that to everyone else, they are engaged, and the guy probably asked out of concern for what others would think. The young lady claims that she is grateful to him and that she has lived well. Then the occupant says that it is clear to him and leaves. Janet then suggests that Laria return to their game, and the main character with a smile on her face says that they can continue the fun game with the checklist. The blonde thinks that the Archduke has been gone for quite a long time, so he will be busy with accumulated matters for some time and will probably call her later. But 30 minutes later, she was already in the young man's office. The main character was wondering what had happened and why she had been called, and without children, to boot. Laria thought that he needed to sort out his business first, but then seeing how the guy's hands were shaking, he thinks he is a little nervous. But the young man then begins to speak and states that he wanted to say something first, that he had not forgotten her request. Laria asks what request he is talking about, and the young man asks if she has already forgotten and if she had not asked him to practice smiling. The main character herself can't help but smile, but then immediately covers her mouth so that the Archduke doesn't notice. But the young man only angrily asks if he is, in her opinion, funny. The young lady claims that nothing of the sort, and the young man is right, because she really asked him about it. Laria realizes that she almost forgot about it because of all the fuss with the seals. But it is his remark about not forgetting about the request that is so similar to Nocton. The girl says that she is glad that the young man did not forget about her request and asks how much he trained. The guy claims that she will understand when she sees it, and the young lady thinks that this is a strong statement, so she tells him to show what he has learned. Then the young man smiles, and the main character, looking at this, is a little embarrassed. The girl thinks what happened during this time, because no matter how much Nocton was to her taste, this is too much. The guy asks what's wrong with the young lady, and the girl just looks away and says that he really tried hard, and she's impressed. And in her mind, she wonders who knew that his smile would make her heart skip a beat. At this time, the main character rises from his seat and approaches the young lady. The brunette takes her by the chin and asks if he could have taken this request lightly. The main character is even more embarrassed by this, and then tells him to let her go. The Archduke does so, and then asks if his smile has improved. The girl says that she is really surprised, and that this natural smile suits Nocton very well, and if he practices a little more, he will become the best smile in the Empire. And judging by the fact that he was able to show such a gentle smile, the guy must have really been training tirelessly. The young man just turns around and says that, not really. But the main character asks his lordship why he looks away. Then she claps her hands and says that in any case, that is enough, and now it is time to move on to practice. The young man asks what she means, and the main character says that he is not going to show this beautiful smile only to her. After that, she tells the children that now they will go to meet his lordship, because yesterday he returned from a business trip and probably missed them very much. Mikhail asks if they cannot go, and the little girl says that she does not want to, and will not go either. The main character thinks that she is taking the children to the dentist. Therefore, the girl claims that his lordship simply wants to see them, and she will go with them, after which she asks if the kids agree. The boy says he believes the young lady, and Janet cries out that she will go too. A little while later, they are already at his lordship's door, when the main character opens the door. The kids are a little surprised, because they see a table full of sweets, and the Archduke is sitting next to it. He tells the children to sit down, and the kids do so, and the main character sits down next to them. The Archduke asks how they are doing, and if the kids are doing well. The boys are a little shocked by this, because they did not expect such a question. And the main character whispers that everything is fine, and he just has to do it. A little while ago, when she was walking with the Archduke, the young man said that he did not understand what would change if he changed the kerosene lamp to a magic one. After all, no one who came to this office ever pointed this out. The girl only asked if anyone would dare to make such comments in his office. Therefore, he should read to himself and try. And also not forget to prepare tea and sweets, and cookies and warm milk, which they both love, are a must. The man asks what all this is about, and isn't it nice to be in an environment where you can focus on the conversation? Laria says people tend to feel closer to another person when the conversation is over a delicious meal. Now Michael decides to answer his father. Well, he is a little nervous. Then Janet decides to help her brother and says that they lived well. The Archduke says he understands, and then claims that he has prepared this table of sweets for the boys, and they can eat as much as they want. The main character asks the young master and young lady what to say at such moments, and the kids immediately thank their father. And then, with joyful smiles, they eat sweets. The main character only smiles. A short time later, the babies are lying on the floor with full bellies. Janet claims she can't eat anymore, and the main character asks if they had fun today and if they enjoyed the conversation with the Archduke. The kids remember how their father, with a smile on his face, suggested that they sit like that again later. That's why Mikhail now claims that it wasn't that bad, and the girl adds that their father wasn't that scary. The young lady thinks that this is not bad, and asks if they would mind if the Archduke suddenly offers them to spend time with him again, like today, or, more precisely, if it will always be like this. Janet claims that she is not against it, and the boy only nods his head. Then the main character is happy because not everything is lost, and if the children are completely closed off from Nocton, it would be more difficult. Although most likely they were waiting until recently for the moment when their father would become warmer and kinder to them. Laria remembers her past life, where she was bullied and humiliated. But then she shakes her head and thinks that it's enough to remember, because it's all long gone. The girl looks at the baby and thinks that the reason she wanted to become a kindergarten teacher was because she wanted no other child to be alone and go through the pain that she had to go through. Laria thinks that she will do everything to ensure that children can grow up in love and care and will never let anyone hurt them. A little while later, the young lady in the Archduke's room suggests that they try hard today as well. The young man claims that she is abnormally energetic today, and Laria says that she is, and suggests that they begin. When the girl realized that everything was going well, she offered Nocton to teach him how to handle children, because this is also part of the nanny's duties. Although many keep silent about this because they do not want to add extra problems to themselves. But today, the young lady has to teach him how to carry children and hug them properly. But when the girl looks at the Archduke, she is surprised and cries out, "Why did he lift the bear like a sack of potatoes?" Nocton asks how else to lift it. Then the main character tells him to watch carefully. After all, you need to lift the bear not like a sack of potatoes or a simple object, but as if he had a real child in his arms, and the guy should hug him, and also press him to himself, gently supporting his back and butt. The young lady shows how to do it, and then hands the teddy bear to the Archduke and says that it is his turn now, and that he should repeat after her. And also, if Nocton wants, she can show it again. The blonde thinks that Nocton usually only dealt with knights or subordinates, so she thinks that this is new for the guy. After all, given the specifics of his work, he could hardly see how to properly treat children, and the Archduke tries very hard, so this is commendable. Well, then the young man just asks if he holds the bear correctly. The main character replies that he did much better than before, but because it is unsafe, he will hardly be able to hold the child like that. Then the girl gets a brilliant idea. She stands behind the Archduke and shows him how to hold the teddy bear correctly. But then she notices something strange and wonders why Nocton was shaking so recently. But at the same moment, the girl jumps back in horror. She apologizes and says that she did it on purpose, because it was just easier to show. The young lady asks the guy to believe her, and she herself thinks that she made a mistake, because how could she forget that Nocton hates any touch from the female sex? And it seems he was right, because she really does have a bad memory. The main character wonders if he will be angry or sarcastic. Then she apologizes to his lordship. Nadia claims that everything is fine, and Laria cannot worry. The main character wants to return, but he claims that he already said that everything is fine. The blonde wonders if she was just winding herself up in vain, and what she did was normal within the framework of the training, after which the girl suggests continuing. The guy, with a serious expression on his face, agrees, and a few minutes later is already making progress in this matter. The main character says that this is a great job, and thanks to the lessons the Archduke has learned to carry a child in his arms, and all that remains is to put this into practice. After all, if he applies this knowledge, the haunting encounters with children. But the young man does not let her finish and claims that this is a waste of time. After all, the kids are unlikely to ever want him to lift them up, because they are afraid of their father and may even hate him. The main character is a little shocked by such a statement. She says that everything is not like that at all, and they ask if the guy has really managed to forget how good it was for them together that time. But later, Laria talked to the children, and the kids said that they liked it, and they also wouldn't mind spending more time with his lordship in the future. So the young lady takes the guy by the hand and asks him to cast aside these doubts. It's still too early to give up. The Archduke is a little inspired by these words. The guy claims that he must have looked pathetic in their eyes to the young lady if he decided to give up so easily. The main character waves her hands and says that it is. But they have a special relationship, so the Archduke may not worry so much. The guy asks what special means, and Laria replies that they have a fake engagement, so their relationship is special. Nocton, with some disappointment, says that it is so. The girl thinks that she is very glad that the guy went to meet her and decided to improve relations with the children, and the young lady thinks that if Nocton knew that this was being done for everyone's happiness, he would try even harder. After which, the young lady suggests trying only another time, because that's enough for today. But when the girl is already preparing to open the door, the young man grabs the door handle. He asks the young lady to let him take her. The blonde wonders if the guy is doing this again, but she doesn't understand why he needs this mansion. It's so well guarded. The main character thinks that sometimes it's very difficult to understand Nocton's train of thought. And in the end, despite Laria's indignation, she had to agree, because if she had done otherwise, it would have been regarded as disrespect. The Archduke asks the girl if she needs to get up early tomorrow, because if so, then she should go to bed early and get a good night's sleep. The main character agrees and tells him to sleep well too, but then the girl remembers that Nocton doesn't sleep well at night, and he prefers not to sleep at all, and if he does fall asleep, he only dreams of nightmares, and the guy has to experience all this night after night because of her. The young lady understands that usually in novels, the main character heals the wounds of the main character, which no one else knows about, and as a result, the main character falls in love with her, and then a happy ending awaits them. But the girl decided to go a different way, so the main character not only falls in love with the main character who saved him, but also becomes obsessed with her and kills everyone who comes even a millimeter closer to her. The young lady understands that because of her selfishness, she has burdened the young man with such torment, and she is very sorry. So now she is simply obliged to do something for the Archduke. The main character turns to his lordship, to which the young man turns around and asks what she wanted. But Laria says that it's nothing special, and she wants to put the Archduke to bed. So the girl asks if he doesn't mind. The guy is a little shocked by the statement and asks how the young lady knew that he had problems with sleep. After all, she is a lady who takes sewing lessons, reads, and participates in tea parties, and has the education to diagnose adult insomnia. Laria says that is not true, and the guy just drinks lavender tea every night. It calms and relieves pain. After all, it is a desperate ingredient that is often used for sound sleep. And there is a book on insomnia on the bookshelf in his office, and the girl just assumed this based on all this. The Archduke claims that her analytical skills are quite good, and perhaps the girl's calling is not to be a nanny, but a detective. Laria wonders whether he is being serious or sarcastic, or the main character could be hurt by the fact that the girl knows his weaknesses. The young man says that no one has ever managed to cure insomnia. He is quite curious about how the young lady is going to put him to sleep, and then tells her to follow him. A little while later, being in his room, he claims that he will leave for a short time to change clothes. The main character agrees, and she thinks that a man's room that smells so nice is a rarity. But the main character's room also turned out to be a palace, but compared to this one, it was quite spacious. The guy turns to the young lady and asks if she has looked at everything. When the girl turns around, she sees the Archduke in a robe. The young lady is a little embarrassed by this, but then she thinks that she should calm down. After the brunette lies down on the bed, the main character says that she will sing him a song. The young man asks if she will sing, and the girl claims that even though you wouldn't know it, she can put any child to sleep with a 5-minute lullaby, and even a crying child is not a problem. The brunette says it's funny and claims that he's tried many ways to cure this insomnia, and if the girl knew even a quarter of these ways, she wouldn't dare say such a thing. The young lady thinks that she knows all the methods he tried, as she is the author of this novel, and therefore knows more about him than anyone else, but perhaps even more than the Archduke knows about himself. So the young lady says that he should give her exactly 5 minutes. After all, since he has put in so much effort, the girl asks him to listen to her song, Well, if he still doesn't like it, then he can throw her out the door. Laria thinks that she wants to help as much as she can. She understands how painfully Nocton lived all this time. The young man says that the girl can do as she wishes, although it will be a waste of time anyway. The main character sits down on the bed and thinks that she will just go for broke, for she will either succeed or it will all end in complete failure. The young lady claims that she is beginning, and then she sings the first words of the lullaby. The young man heard them and immediately grabbed the girl by the shoulder, and he furiously asks what she is doing and how she knows this song, as well as why the young lady decided to perform it and what the hell her intentions are. Laria thinks about how hard the Archduke grabbed her, but she understands that in the past, Nocton must have been in even more pain and fear. His insomnia is linked to trauma from the children's real father, and this is the song the man sang to little Nocton several times. In other words, this is all an adventure, and then he will either remember good memories and fall fast asleep, or, on the contrary, go crazy. The girl understands that she first needs to calm the young man down and asks what the guy is talking about and what intentions he has in mind. After all, it's just a folk song that was popular in her area. Nocton asks what it's about, and Laria says that adults often sing it as a lullaby, and she heard that this song was spread by a wandering singer who came from far away. The young lady asks if the Archduke has heard this song too. The young man states that he thinks so. He then lies back in bed and curses this wandering singer, asking why he made this song popular. The main character did not think that the young man would become so furious, and as expected. Fighting fire with fire by pushing him face to face with painful memories was a reckless idea. Nocton turns around and says that if anyone sees him, they will think that he threatened Laria. And wasn't the girl proud that she could put anyone to sleep in 5 minutes? The young lady listens to him attentively, and the guy claims that he will give her exactly 5 minutes, and during this time, Laria can do whatever she wants. The main character thanks him and claims that she will try very hard and will never disappoint the Archduke with her singing. The brunette says that after 5 minutes, they will stop this, and the young lady will not have another chance, because he cannot afford to waste his time like this. The blonde agrees and says to trust her, because this song is the best when it comes to sleep. The Archduke claims that he knows this, and the young lady then begins to sing a lullaby as she finishes addressing his lordship. But she sees that the young man is already asleep. The main character sighs and wishes him good night. Then she goes to the children. The girl apologizes to Mary because lately she has been leaving the children with the maid more and more often. The maid says that it is nothing and the meeting with the master is more important, and also everything is fine so the mistress can go faster and the children are sleeping like angels. The main character thanks the maid, and the maid wonders if everything is okay with the lady. Since today, the main character has been helping Nocton fall asleep every night. On this day, the girl did the same. She thinks that today she was a little late because she had to put the children to bed. Laria looks at the starry sky and realizes that Nocton, who could not fall asleep even after listening to some famous performances or taking a famous medicine, now falls asleep in a matter of minutes after listening to her lullaby. The young lady, sitting on his bed, asks if the Archduke is comfortable, because if so, then she will start singing. But the young man interrupts the main character and addresses her. He claims that first. He wants to ask her something, and then claims that the girl's working day these days was much longer than usual. The young lady doesn't understand what he's talking about, and then realizes that her workday has really gotten longer, since before she was free as soon as the children fell asleep. But lately, she has been teaching Nocton how to communicate with children, so she goes to bed later. Laria claims that everything is fine, and she also has mild insomnia, so it is okay that her sleep schedule has changed a little. But the brunette says that this is not normal, because what will happen if she faints from overexertion? He wouldn't want people to gossip that their servants are being driven to exhaustion here. The blonde thinks that this is not such a difficult job, but the young man claims that from now on, the girl can start work 2 hours later, and now she will work from 9 in the morning. The Archduke also asks not to make him repeat this again. The main character is a little shocked and says that then she won't be able to wake up the kids and feed them in the morning. But the brunette claims that this is not a problem because he can hire 2 more nannies who will look after them from 7 to 9 in the morning. After which, he asks if this is enough for Laria to agree. But the girl thinks what kind of employer would hire more workers to give another one a rest, because it is incomprehensible to the mind. Therefore, the main character tries to object, but the young man claims that he does not accept any objections. After all, this is an order, and it is not discussed, and the girl will obey the Archduke. The girl says that she will do as he says. Then the young man says that it is nice and wishes her good night. The blonde thinks that of course she thanks him for his concern, but does not understand why he goes so far. And when she finishes singing the lullaby, she looks at the sleeping Archduke. The young lady thinks she can't help but notice that he looks damn handsome, and especially when he sleeps. The main character already raises her hand and thinks that the guy does not look menacing, but even cute. But then she immediately pulls her hand back and hits herself in the face. The girl, thinking how can she think about this? Then she leaves the room and thinks that he must have gone crazy, because this is almost harassment. But the next day, the young lady wakes up early in the morning. Then she understands that from now on she can sleep longer. But unfortunately, the girl again woke up so early out of habit. The blonde thinks that she is worried, because suddenly the young lady didn't like the food and she is making a scene. And she lies quietly in bed. Or the young gentleman could have accidentally fallen again and started crying. So a little while later, the girl already enters the dining room. Rumors are a little shocked, and the young lady wishes them good morning and asks if they slept well. The maid says that of course it is, and then apologizes that they did not greet the girl properly because they did not expect to see the mistress before 9 o'clock in the morning. And most importantly, I do not say that she tried to sleep longer, but could not because of concern for the children. That's why she decided to come there earlier. The girl approaches the kids and starts waking them up. She doesn't understand what came over Nocton, because Luria felt fine even during her previous working hours, because she only had to look after the children, and then the girl did it brilliantly. As working hours were also shifted, and this was done for convenience, since the maid only serves Luria. But to be honest, the main character thinks that she should have been allowed to rest more often, because the maid worked tirelessly. The blonde is happy that now Mary can get a good night's sleep. Well, suddenly, a maid comes up to the lady and asks if she wants anything special. The young lady replies that no, and she doesn't need anything, and she wonders what the head of the kitchen is doing here. The woman's wife asks if the mistress is hungry and can bring her some freshly baked buns, but the blonde only thanks the maid and says that she is not hungry. After all, she had already had a snack with the children, so the woman doesn't have to worry, and now she has to look after the kids, so the young lady claims that the train is later. Then the head of the kitchen leaves, and Luria thinks that the woman was probably worried that the lady was hungry, so she came and that it was very sweet. But suddenly, the main character hears some scream, and it turns out that Jeanette has fallen. The main character immediately runs up to the little girl and cries out if she is okay. The girl says that everything is fine, and the young lady does not have to worry. The one who was the culprit of this incident apologizes and says that he is really sorry because of these papers, he did not see the young lady. And also, the girl cannot worry about the papers because the deputy commanders of the knights will pick them up themselves. The main character thinks what kind of deputy commander of the knights is this? But when she raises her head, she sees a young man who extends his hand to her. He greets her and claims to be Bernil Teisberg, the second in command of the Blackwell family knights. He also apologizes for his subordinate knocking down the young lady. The girl thinks that she is hearing this name for the first time and believes that this is their first meeting. The young man claims that he has heard a lot about the lady, and they also saw each other from afar at the banquet, but the chance to talk in person came only now. The main character thinks that she does not remember this at all, and it seems that at that moment, she did not care about the people around her. The knight says that after her heroic rescue of the Archduke, he became very interested in the young lady, and in fact, the guy heard that the lady abused children. But now, having seen her in real life, he realized that this is not so, and he does not think that the girl would even dare to touch a bug. The blonde just thinks what nonsense he is talking about and claims that the guy is absolutely right, and she thinks that he is truly cruel to bugs and insects. There can only be knights like them. The young man apologizes if he offended the lady and claims that he simply wanted to explain to believe the girl is different from the one he imagined based on rumors. He hopes that the blonde is no longer angry, because the young man would not want to incur the wrath of the future Archduchess Blackwell. Laria says that it is good that he apologized, and the future Archduchess forgives him. But in her thoughts, she wonders if the knight decided to make fun of her. The deputy bows and says that he thanks the future Archduchess. The girl's wife asks why he is here, and whether he came because of her. The brown-haired man claims that everything is correct. The butler asked me to tell the young lady to come to his office later, and also said that he wanted to discuss something with her. The blonde agrees and says that she will visit him a little later. The knights bow and say that it is time for them to go, so they wish the lady a good day. The blonde thinks that the guy just talked nonsense and left. She also wonders if the young man really didn't like her and decided to show his dislike in this way. When the guy leaves, he turns around to look at the young lady, and he realizes that Laria Sherwood, without thinking, hugged the young lady, who only recently got her dress dirty, and if the girl were an average aristocrat, she certainly wouldn't do that, because she would hardly want to get her expensive dress dirty. And the girl responded to his caustic jokes with dignity, and she is also friendly and patient. But for now, the guy says that it is too early to draw final conclusions, and it is worth watching for a while longer. A little while later, the main character knocks on the butler's office. Simon asks if the young lady has arrived. The girl says yes, and asks if the butler called her. Simon tells her to come in and sit down, because they need to talk. After which, he offers the young lady to look at some papers. He hands Laria these papers and says that he would like to know the lady's opinion about this. The girl, looking at the papers, wonders if this could be some kind of contract, and whether Nocton really decided to change its contents due to a change in working hours. But then the main character sees that this is not at all what she expected. In truth, this was not the first time Simon asked her opinion. He asked Lady Sherwood if she could look at some papers, because this time they would be meeting important guests from the southern part of the empire. So the butler wanted to talk to her about the dinner menu. The girl understands that it is not so difficult, so at first she helped him, but since this happens over and over again, she feels a little awkward, and recently the girl has been busy with other things, so she has not paid much attention. But now she has a furniture catalog in her hands, which contains a chair and a tea table in a set. The girl does not understand why the butler asks her about this, because this is a whole redevelopment. She places the catalog on the chair and then turns to the butler. The young lady claims that she is still the Archduke's fiancée, not the Archduchess, and it could also happen that his lordship changes his mind and calls off the engagement. That's why the main character thinks that it's too early to adjust the interior of the mansion to her taste. The butler claims that the lady is right, but tries to object. The young lady thinks that, hey, it's a pity in front of the servant, but this is a fake engagement. So the girl says that if this is all that Simon wanted, then she will probably go, and the butler cries out that there is something else. And then he states that the room she used needs some repairs, and he thinks that the young lady will need to use another one for a while. Laria asks what needs to be repaired in her room, since there were no problems this morning. The man says that the beams on the ceiling have been gnawed by mice, and it is dangerous, so the young lady should not enter the room for now. The girl thinks that Simon is not a good liar. The main character asks where this temporary room he is talking about is, and the man says that he will take her there right now. But when they come to this room, the girl thinks that she knew it because the renovation was just an excuse to move her there. The butler claims that since this is how it happened, she can now use this room for a while, and the young lady asks if it is really only for a while. Simon says with a smile that this is true, but the girl understands that she sees right through him. Therefore, the girl claims that she did say, but she will repeat that this room is too big for her, so she asks if they have a smaller one. The butler claims that they do not, and, unfortunately, all the other free rooms are also being renovated. The young lady claims that, first of all, she is an employee of this mansion, and only then the bride of the Archduke. And moreover, this room is much larger than the one that belongs to the children she serves. And the girl is not the owner of the bay window, and therefore cannot live in such a luxurious place. The butler claims that he understands her perfectly, but does not understand what to do, because this is the only free room in the mansion at the moment, and they will try to finish the renovation as soon as possible, so. But the main character stays with him and claims that there is a free room. The man says that this cannot be and asks which room she is talking about. A little while later, the main character enters the maid's room with a smile on her face. The blonde greets Mary and says that they are now neighbors, and the girl hopes that they will get along. The maid only asks how a lady can live where she does, but Laria asks Mary not to say so since they both work in the mansion. And all the empty rooms are being renovated now, so nothing can be done. Then the girl asks the butler if this is true. The man approaches the main character and asks if she is serious about sleeping with the maids. The girl replies that she is, and asks him not to belittle the maids, because she is the same worker of the mansion as they are. But the butler then claims that as the only daughter of the Earl of Sherwood, she simply cannot do this, and also as the future mistress of the Archduchy of Blackwell. The butler tells the young lady not to choose this room. He claims he was wrong and asks the girl to return to her old one. Laria only says, "What is he talking about? Mice have gnawed the beams there." Sluha, having given birth, bows down and says that their craftsmen have golden hands, and now the repairs are probably already finished, so he asks the lady to come back. The main character, thinking why did he lie to her at all if he got caught so quickly, it seems to her that it is not easy for a man, so she should stop teasing him. After that, the girl agrees. She apologizes to Mary and says that it turns out that they won't be neighbors after all, and the main character tells Zion to raise his head. The maid says that everything is fine. A little while later, the young lady is already lying in her room. She does not understand why the butler is behaving this way. After all, this room is magnificent and several times better than the one she has at home. And this room cannot be compared with the small studio apartment she lived in before. The young lady thinks that she has given Simon a firm refusal, and in the future, it seems, this will not happen again. A little while later, the main character asks the maid if what she just said is true. The maid claims that, and she doesn't know why. But after her arrival, the hostel for the Out Loud was completely renovated, and the conditions became much better. Laria thinks that it seems Simon was afraid that he would go there again. But suddenly, the main character hears two maids gossiping. One of them claims that this has been going on for 2 weeks, and that it was the same yesterday. Another maid asks if her colleague is serious, and if this has been happening every day for 2 weeks, because if so, then there are serious passions there. The blonde thinks about what they are talking about, and it seems that the girls are gossiping, so there is no need to listen. But when she is about to leave, she hears that the Archduke and his bride secretly meet every night. And this is definitely true love. And the rumor that they fell in love at first sight turned out to be true. And it's very romantic. The main character is shocked and thinks that everything is not like that. But this can make you go crazy. This girl should have foreseen this. Because engaged men and women see each other every night. And it would have been even stranger if the rumors had not appeared. But now the girl understands why the servants became so nice to her. That's why Simon kept asking her opinion, and even tried to move her to another room. The blonde realizes that they have got it all wrong. She puts her hands on her head and doesn't know what to do. The maid asks if the mistress is okay, and then turns around and says that she will teach these maids a lesson right now. But the main character grabs her hand and says that there is no need to interfere with this. After all, she doesn't want to make a fuss. The main character thinks that this is a serious misunderstanding, but they are not spreading rumors out of malice. The maid just continues to gossip. One of them claims that she was very afraid of the owner, but he turns out to be such a romantic, and she also wants to have such a hot love. But then one of the maids claims that they will be so late, so they offer to go faster before they are scolded. The main character is just wondering what she should do, because rumors instantly spread throughout the mansion. She is of course embarrassed. But that is not the most important thing, because if Nocton becomes famous as a romantic or a passionate lover, who would it be as bad as it could be? Therefore, this cannot be allowed, because the guy has never even held a girl's hand in his entire life. Laria decides to think about it in the evening, and now she says that she and Mary have to go, because the children's etiquette lesson will soon end. That same evening, Janet cries out that she does not want to sleep. Laria asks the young lady what is wrong and why she does not want to sleep, and also asks if the girl should tell another story. But the little girl cries out that she does not want to. The boy says that the young lady will leave when they fall asleep, so he asks her to stay with them. The main character thinks that it is already late, so she needs to quickly put the children to bed and go to Noctin's room. Therefore, she says that if the children want to become good people in the future, they must be able to sleep alone. But Janet screams that it's not fair, because Laria sleeps with her father every day, so why can't she do the same with them? The main character is completely shocked by this, and also wonders who said this, guys. The girl claims that everything is not like that at all, and that she does not sleep with his lordship, but leaves as soon as he falls asleep. But the little girl screams that the young lady is lying, and Mikhail asks why Laria doesn't want to sleep with them. The little girl hugs the main character and says that she also wants to sleep with her and her father. Mikhail does the same. But then someone asks if the babies say they want to sleep with him and Lady Sherwood in the same bed. It turns out to be the Archduke. He leans over to the children and asks if once is enough. Janet answers that yes. Then they want to say that tomorrow evening he, Mikhail, Janet, and Laria will sleep in the same bed. After which he asks if the kids are happy about this, and the kids immediately nod. The main character is shocked and wonders what is wrong with her ears, and whether she misheard. Because if she heard everything correctly, then she and her children will sleep in the same bed. And although this will only happen once, rumors may begin to spread that they have serious intentions. And some may even think that in the future they will become husband and wife. The main character wonders if Noctin really didn't think about it at all. The young man just looks at Laria, and the girl thinks that it will be difficult for him to explain all this to the main character. But the girl thinks how strange it is, because this is not the first time she has been alone with the Archduke, but she does not understand why she is so nervous today. The young man touches her hair and asks Laria to tell him whether she is angry with him. The girl just turns around and asks him why, but the young man claims that she didn't say a word while they were walking. Then the young lady wonders if he seriously decided that she was angry, but the main character was simply immersed in her thoughts. And the guy has already managed to imagine all sorts of things from this, so the young lady claims that this is not true at all, and she is not angry. Then Noctin asks why she was silent the whole way. The blonde claims that she was thinking about her own things, and that's why it happened. She was thinking about whether the Archduke would be able to sleep with the children and get enough sleep. The guy tells the main character not to worry, because he wouldn't suggest something he couldn't do. The young lady just wonders when she'll learn to think before she speaks. She asks his lordship if he's sure everything will be okay. After all, their engagement is fake. But some people might misunderstand his actions, and Laria wouldn't want to create difficulties for him in the future, because suddenly, his future real wife might get jealous. The brunette claims that he is not one to care about the rumors that are spread, no matter what they are. But he asks if everything will really be okay. Laria asks what he is talking about, and the Archduke replies that she will spend the night with him in the same room and bed. The blonde says that she will be fine, and they will not be alone, because the children will be nearby. And the girl also knows for sure that Noctin would not do anything, because he is not interested in her as a woman at all. The guy just turns around in response, and the young lady asks why he did that. Then the Archduke replies that he is simply very tired and wants to sleep. The blonde says that then she will start singing a lullaby so that he falls asleep faster. A little while later, the maid is already screaming whether they heard it right and whether the mistress will really sleep in the same bed with the master. The blonde says that it is so, and also the young mistress and young master will sleep with them. Then one of the maids grabs the young lady by the hand and suggests that she not waste time. She claims that she wants to cast a spell on the mistress as soon as possible and promises that when they finish, the girl will be the most beautiful in the world. She also asks what fat to add to the bath, rose petals or lilies. Laria says that there is no need to try so hard, but the girls don't even listen to her and claim that this is the first night together between the mistress and the Archduke, and they want the young lady to be irresistible. The girl thinks that it seems that the maids don't hear her at all because of their wild imagination. Mary, meanwhile, is preparing her young master. The boy asks when Laria will come, and the little girl is just lying on the floor. The maid notes that it will be very soon, and the mistress is now busy preparing for a night together with them. Mikhail says that he hopes Laria will come soon, and he is waiting for her with impatience. But then someone announces that the lady has arrived, and the kids immediately run to the main character. The maid tells the young master and young mistress that it is dangerous to run like that because they might get hurt. But then the maid sees Laria. The main character thanks the maid for taking care of the children while she was away. Janet says how beautiful Laria is, and Mikhail adds that she is very sweet. The little girl understands that she made a compliment, so she turns away and says that she misheard. And the main character thinks what a cutie Janet is, and it seems she was so surprised that she said the first thing that came to mind. The blonde understands that she is very happy that even the children were so delighted. Laria tells the young gentleman that in such cases they usually say beautiful and not sweet, but she is still grateful to Mikhail. Mary wishes good night to the lady, Juno to the master, and the young lady to the lady. The boys wish the maid the same, and then they all head to Nocton's room. The young lady tells Janet not to run because she might fall, but then the main character looks at her reflection in the window. The girl understands that, despite her numerous protests, the maids did manage to make her pretty, and the young lady only hoped that the Archduke would not think that it was for his sake. The girl understands that they would like to allow such a misunderstanding, but suddenly Mikhail turns to Laria. He asks if the girl will pick him up, but Janet screams at her not to pick up the boy, and it was better to take her in her arms. The main character asks if they are still afraid to go down the stairs, and she thinks that if she carries Mikhail in her arms, her clothes will get wrinkled, and the maid tried so hard. But then the girl realizes that she is thinking about nonsense because she will sleep in these clothes, so they will still get wrinkled. So the young lady thinks that nothing terrible will happen if this happens a little earlier and prepares to take Mikhail in her arms. But suddenly, someone else takes the boy in his arms. It turns out to be the Archduke. The main character wonders when he came, but she understands that something completely different is more important now. The brunette says that he heard a noise and decided to look out and saw that the boy was asking to be picked up by Lady Sherwood, and didn't he tell Mikhail not to do that? The boy apologizes in response. Laria thinks that the Archduke remembered how to hold a child correctly and that the lessons were not in vain. The girl is so glad that she spent time on his training, because it would be a shame if the guy did not apply the knowledge in practice. The brunette wife says that if the guys go to bed late, they will never grow up big. When the boy enters his father's room, he immediately starts running, but the blonde tells him to run slower because he might fall. Then Laria turns to the young lady and tells her to get off the chair quickly, because she might get hurt. The Archduke, meanwhile, tells the young lady not to come near. The main character asks what he is talking about and whether he said anything to her. The young man puts his hand on her shoulder and claims that everything is so. After all, he told Laria not to come near him. The blonde asks why and if his lordship is unwell, but the guy claims that this is not the case, and she smells nice. The young lady is embarrassed by this, but then he tries to calm down and says that it's all the maids. The main character takes her lock of hair in his hand, and he claims that it is the scent of wisteria, and then asks if the young lady likes this scent. The girl does not even know what to answer, but suddenly she hears a loud sound behind her. The main character immediately turns around and excitedly calls out to the young lady. But when she turns around, she sees that the girl has broken the vase and screams at me, asking if she is hurt. The girl says that the baby seriously can't be left unattended for even a second, and suggests that they finish playing, because they came to sleep, so it's time to go to bed. The baby says that then she will lie down next to Laria, but Mikhail says that he wants to be with her too. The young lady tells them not to quarrel. A little while later, they are already lying in bed, and the main character is wondering how this happened. Initially, she was going to put the children between them and Nocton, in order to lie as far away from him as possible. But the kids were very persistent, and none of them wanted to give in, so the girl suggested lying down between them. And because of this, she lies so close to Nocton, but when the main character looks in his direction, then she catches the Archduke's eye. The young lady asks if His Highness is still awake, but the guy only shows her to be quieter. When the young lady turns around, she realizes that the children are already asleep. The main character thinks that because they lie like this, it seems like they are a real family, but neither the Sherwood family, who treated her with disrespect and indifference, nor her mother, who abandoned her. They didn't show her the same love as Nocton and the children, with whom she spent only 3 months, and it seems they need her and care for her more. But the girl understands that she cannot think about something like this and hope because she has no place in this family, because she is only a fleeting moment for them, and the one who only temporarily took the place of the main character. Well, suddenly, someone reaches out to the young lady, and then he gently touches her lips. It turns out to be the Archduke. He looks at the girl with a serious look, and the young lady turns to his lordship. But suddenly, Mikhail says Laria's name and asks her to put her hand under his head. The girl asks if the young gentleman is uncomfortable lying on the pillow, and then tells him to lift his head slightly. Well, then the baby also wakes up. She screams why only Mikhail can do this, because she wants it too. A little while later, the blonde is already hugging these two and thinks that she barely managed to put them to sleep again. But it seems to her that the Archduke is still looking in her direction. The young lady understands that he touched her lip as if telling her not to bite it. And it was so sudden that the young lady now feels awkward meeting his gaze. And she doesn't understand how she will look him in the eye tomorrow. The next day, the girl wakes up and then gets out of bed and sees the Archduke. She turns to his lordship and says that it was still early in the morning that the girl asked what he was doing. The young man claims that he ordered breakfast to be brought because he was too tired to walk to the dining room. The main character thinks that he doesn't look particularly tired and that this is really breakfast in bed, but the girl doesn't remember rewarding him with romance. The main character thinks that it seems she is slowly learning to expose him for evading answers and lies, after which the girl tells the young lady and gentleman to wake up because it is time for breakfast. When they finish eating, the main character says that they must have caused a lot of inconvenience, and the young man only asks what kind of inconvenience. The blonde thinks that, given his taciturn nature, such an answer suggests that everything was not so bad. Then she claims that they will go soon, because the children have a lesson scheduled, after which the girl leaves, leaving the Archduke alone with his thoughts. The young lady realizes that if everything was going quite well for Nocton, what about her? Since her hands were full with the children who were fast asleep, and the first person she saw upon waking up was Nocton. And the main character opens the door and thinks that when they had breakfast together, the girl felt like a part of this family. The maid turns to the mistress and asks if she had a good time. The main character thinks that, frankly speaking, yes. Well, she says with a smile on her face, that it was all for the sake of the children. So he asks why Mary asked about her condition in the first place. But the main character is thinking about something completely different because she really liked it. But then she asks her grandfather how they were having this night. Mikhail claims that it was just wonderful to sleep together. Laria, Janet, and her father, and the baby says the bed was very big. But then the boy asks the young lady when he and his father will get married. And when the girl becomes their real mother, Laria thinks that's what they're saying now. But with the appearance of the main character, they will forget about her and will call her mom. And when will this happen? Then the blonde will be able to leave them with a clear conscience. Hello, the children will not be sad and will quickly forget about her because they will get used to the main character. But the girl doesn't understand why this thought hurts her so much. She just laughs awkwardly and says that, to be honest, she doesn't know. The kid asks why she doesn't know, and Janet screams, asking the same thing. The young lady pats the boy on the head and apologizes, then claims that she will definitely tell them the reason later. She understands that sooner or later, even if she doesn't want to, she will have to tell them the truth. Several days have passed since that day, and after they slept in the same bed, nothing has changed. The kids asked Laria to sleep for another 5 minutes, but the girl told the young lady that if she did not go to bed early and get up early, she would not be able to grow up healthy. Then she tells the young gentleman that his hair has become disheveled while he was sleeping, so she offers to comb it quickly. The maid just watches all this, and then she claims that she knows that it is rude of her to say such a thing to the lady. But she asks if the young lady should start taking more care of herself, because she works hard from early morning until late at night, completely ignoring her sleep and health. The maid asks why the girl doesn't give herself at least a little rest. But the main character claims that everything is fine, and Mary doesn't have to worry because she feels good. And what's more, she is very happy. But the maid only grabs her mistress's hand and claims that she knows very well that the young lady cares very much about the young mistress, young master. But if she doesn't rest, she'll eventually just collapse from fatigue, not to mention health problems. But the girl claims that she's really fine. Mary says that no, And from this moment on, the mistress should rest more often, and she doesn't need to worry about the children, because the maid will look after them herself. And a little while later, the young lady is already sitting on a chair. She understands that she has been sent to rest again. And because of idleness, she again thinks that one day the children will forget about her, and she won't even be able to see them. But the girl can't understand why they are doing this, because she has often gone through this in the past. As a kindergarten teacher, over the course of several years, she said goodbye to many children whom she had known for many years. Then these children also gradually forgot about her, but now the girl does not understand why she is so sad. At that moment, two kids run into the room and ask Laria what she was doing. The girl understands that when she thinks about Janet and Mikhail forgetting about her, and she will not see them again. It's just heartbreaking, and the young lady has tears in her eyes. The maid turns to the young mistress and the young master. She asks them to come to her quickly, because the mistress needs to rest. But Janet claims that she wants to play with Laria, and Mikhail says that he wants to show her something. The main character tells Mary that everything is fine, and then asks the young master what he wanted to show. The boy just giggles, and then shows that he has collected all the seals. Laria says that he is a great guy, and the kid claims that he tried very hard. But Janet is indignant and asks what her brother did to be considered a good guy and collect these seals easier than pie. But the girl says that since Mikhail collected all the seals, then she promised to fulfill one of his wishes, and then asks what the young master would like. The girl understands that Nocton constantly spoils them, so it is difficult to even guess what he would like. And maybe the boy will suggest having picnics more often, and lying down will want her to allow him to eat tasty things every day. But the boy just points to his lips and says that his wish is a kiss. The main character asks what he is talking about, and the boy replies that he wants Laria to kiss him on the cheek. The girl wonders if he really worked so hard to collect the seals to ask for such a sweet thing as a kiss on the cheek. The young lady thinks how sweet it is and grants the wish, then asks the young gentleman if he is pleased. The boy says yes. However, he thinks that if Laria kissed him many, many more times, he would be the happiest man in the world. The main character almost has a heart attack from so much cuteness. She hugs the young gentleman and says how sweet he is. And Janet, looking at this, is already shaking with anger. The girl screams while Laria kisses only Mikhail, because she wants to too. The main character wonders if their sweet young lady was upset that she didn't get a kiss. Then she gets up from her seat and jumps up, saying that she will catch up and kiss the little girl. The boy tells Laria to kiss him too. The main character thinks that it seems that she now understands everything. After all, the girl let these kids into her heart, and they became an important part of her world, yes. But even if in the future they fall in love with another woman and forget her, the main character will never be able to forget them and will always love them while she has the opportunity. And the girl would like to give them as much of her love as possible, so as not to regret that she missed the chance to do this. The maid, looking at the letter in Laria's hands, asks if another letter has arrived from the Sherwood family. The maid asks if they won't calm down, since the young lady has already made it clear that she doesn't want to have anything to do with them. Laria thinks that at first there were 2 to 3 letters a week, but now they are sent in large quantities and almost every day. At first, only the stepmother wrote, then Norman started, and now Adolf has decided to write a letter. But most likely, they plan to get closer to the Archduke through her. And this is understandable, because everyone wants a place in the sun. Varniknaya apologizes and says that she should not have said too much, because these guys are still the young lady's family. But the main character says that it's okay. She throws the letters into the trash and says that she agrees with Mary. After which, he leaves the room and says that today, the kids wanted to walk around the market, so he asks if the maid will help him get ready. A little while later, Mikhail is already eating cotton candy, and the main character asks him how he liked today's walk. The kid says yes, and suggests going there again later. The main character agrees and says later, but suddenly she hears someone screaming that they can't let this person pass. The young lady wonders why it is so noisy near the gate, because a second ago it was quiet, but suddenly she hears someone screaming her name. The girl realizes that this is a very familiar voice, and when she turns around, she sees her mother. The woman, with tears in her eyes, asks to be allowed to see Laria at least once. The main character thinks, why did the stepmother come there, and with such behavior? Adolf also came. He cries out that he wanted to meet his sister, and they ask what the problem is. The knight claims that his lordship has ordered the protection of Lady Sherwood, so they will no longer tolerate the unacceptable behavior of Countess Sherwood and the young master. The boy just screams, what did he say, and who is he to say such a thing to them? The woman, giving birth, tries to calm her son down, and the young lady turns away and thinks that she needs to quickly go inside before they notice her. But suddenly, the woman turns in her direction and screams her daughter's name. But the main character only calls the security. She says that she will go into the mansion with the children, so let them drive these people away. But when the girl turns around, she hears Adolf screaming her name. But when the girl turns around, she already sees him jumping over the fence. The knight stands in front of the main character and screams when the heat this boy has gathered. But the young man only goes around the knight, grabs his sister by the hand, and turns to Laria. And a little puzzled, she asks if it's true that she won't come back, and if she hates the boy so much. Laria does not understand why her brother behaves this way, because the young man constantly bullied Laria herself and her in her body, smiling impudently and maliciously, as if something funny was happening. Therefore, the girl does not understand what all this is about now. But suddenly, Janet screams out whether they are going to take Laria away again, and claims that the girl is her nanny, so these idiots should not touch her. The main character understands that, if you think about it, the little girl stopped them last time too. Adolf only blushes and screams for her to be quiet. He asks furiously what a little girl like her could possibly know to say that. He clenches his fists, and when Laria looks at his face, she sees tears. The guy, crying bitterly, tells his sister that he was wrong. After all, he bothered her every day, released centipedes in her room, stole sweets, broke a vase, and blamed her, and called her names all the time. The guy says that he is guilty and he is very sorry, so he asks the girl to come back. The maid only tells the lady to simply ignore him and suggests going inside. The main character just remains silent, and then he turns and leaves with the maid. The knight cries out for the young man to return immediately, otherwise he will be taken out of the force. Adolf, with tears in his eyes, tells his sister that he was wrong and asks her to forgive him and come back. The main character, returning to her room, thinks that all this is strange, because Laria is the daughter of the Earl of Sherwood, which means that she is from a good family. The girl was beautiful, so they would definitely want to marry her off profitably, which was why they tried to get her to come back during the dinner party. But that expression on her brother's face was a little strange right now. After all, the young man is too young to feign repentance so well, and he is not one of those who would resort to such a thing. The young lady looks at the trash can and decides to take one of the sheets. But when he opens it, he is a little surprised, because Adolf wrote a lot of sheets, and it seems he even perfumed each page. All this time the girl did not notice, because she did not look closely. Well, all the letters were carefully sealed, and the envelopes were decorative, and even the color of the ink was given attention. The girl sighs and thinks that her brother probably wrote some pompous sentences. But fortunately, or unfortunately, every word and phrase was filled with regret. He apologized and said that he was very sorry, wrote that he should not have treated her like that. The main character throws these sheets on the table and thinks that she doesn't even know what happened there, that he decided to go so far. She is the author of this work, so she thought that she knew everything about this world. But each time he becomes more and more convinced that he doesn't know everything, and suddenly the young lady is approached by a maid. She claims that the Archduke is calling her lady. The girl is a little surprised by this, but then heads to his office. And when she comes, she thinks that she heard that the guy just returned, and does not understand why he called her without even having time to rest. But the young man says that more than half of the contract period has passed, so they need to update it. The main character doesn't understand what he's talking about and why so suddenly. The young man claims that he will add another 3 years to the existing 6 months, and the salary will be 5 times more than before. The girl does not understand how this is possible at all, but the young man claims that the salary for 3 years will be paid in advance as soon as she signs the contract, and then asks what the girl thinks about this. The main character is a little puzzled by all this. She thinks that if the current salary is increased by 5 times, and it is implemented for 3 years in advance, then it will come out to be a lot. But the young ladies understand that they need to pull themselves together, so they ask his lordship why he is offering her a job on such favorable terms. The young man only answers that he likes these methods of education. Moreover, it would be better for the children to have one nanny for a long time. The girl does not even believe that he decided to make the salary in the clouds only because of this, but she understands that, given that she has officially become a nanny, this is reasonable. But this kind of money is a bit too much. And after 9 months, the main character will appear, so Laria cannot stay with Nocton and the children. The guy silently looks at the blonde and waits for her answer, but the girl only addresses his lordship with a serious face. And she apologizes, and then says that she cannot sign this contract. The young man clenches his fists in response. He reflects on the fact that he still doesn't know what kind of person the young lady is. At their first meeting, he thought the girl was superficial, but he was never wrong. The girl claimed that it is very important for children to grow up in love and care, because only such children can become strong and independent people without complexes and emotional wounds. The young man did not understand who this lady was. There is one little-known disease that is passed down in the Blackwell family from generation to generation. It's called a manic attack, and this disease almost guaranteed every person unprecedented strength. But the price for it is the loss of reason. At such a moment, everything is possible, even violence and injury to others. Nocton also received a power. It is called the Eye, which allows one to look into the very soul of a person. Thanks to him, the guy could easily determine people's intentions. He also immediately distinguished those who wanted to serve him faithfully and truly. With this power, the Archduchy of Blackwell was able to rise so quickly in such a short period of time. On the first day of their meeting, Nocton decided to use force on the girl as well. The guy thought it was strange because he had never seen such a color before. He understood that there was nothing special about Laria Sherwood, and she was an ordinary aristocrat. The new color of her soul, on the contrary, is extremely unusual and seems out of this world. The guy thought maybe she is not a person at all. He doesn't know what the young lady's goal is or who she is, so he can only watch her. The young man periodically asked if there was any news regarding Lady Sherwood. The knight replied that yes, and they assumed that her family was against the lady being here. The brother claimed that it was normal because their daughter was far away, and with her man. The knight claimed that it actually felt like they were trying to hide Lady Sherwood from prying eyes. At this time, the main character in the corridor screams for the young gentleman to be slower because he could fall. The Archduke wonders if the girl really loves children so much. The more the guy got to know her, the more perplexed he became. The young lady always says that children should be treated with love, but he doubts that the girl herself has ever received such love. But he is tormented by the question of why her soul is of such a color. Although it is atypical, there is no danger coming from her, and on the contrary, the girl's soul seems innocent and beautiful. It was then that the guy had his first thoughts that he wanted to take possession of her. Well, suddenly, the guy realizes what he just said. The young man looks at his hand and wonders what the hell he's thinking. The young man remembers how people gossiped when he went out with Lady Sherwood. The boy thought that all these people were like cattle. They were the upper crust of the country. But he understood that as soon as it became clear that they were engaged, everything would immediately calm down. The guy felt disgusted at the thought that people would immediately start hanging around the girl. However, he was a little surprised when the young lady let go of his hand, and looking at the light of the girl's soul, he saw that changes had occurred. The guy realized by her shaking hands that Laria had heard everything. He thought what a fool he had been. After all, he didn't even think that a person with such a beautiful soul would be nervous after hearing something like this, and that he was the one who brought the girl there again. Nocton understood that the blonde was in great pain. Then one of the servants turned to the master and said that the preparations were almost complete. After a short conversation about traitors, the Archduke told the knight that he would stay there. The guy, a little shocked, asked if it would be better for him to lead the squad. And the brunette claimed that he planned to introduce his bride today. The knight was surprised by this, and the Archduke said what he thought. The servant himself knew that after such news, many would want to attempt on her life, so he would stay with her. The young man understood that this dark color did not suit Laria, so now he would do it. probably the most selfish act in life. The young man realized that the girl was a good person, and she cared about the children, but he is still curious why only she has such a color of soul. At that moment, the Archduke thought that only this moves him, but as it turned out, he was wrong. And the young lady even dared to say that he had a terrifying smile, as if he himself didn't know it. And she was also very worried about him, although she hardly knew him. Even the color of the soul, which once seemed strange to him, now became so familiar. Therefore, when the young man thinks that she can disappear, his soul becomes heavy. But the young man does not understand why he is even thinking about such things. He remembers how yesterday, when the children were upset, Laria quickly consoled them. However, the guy then said that the next day he and the girl would also sleep together. The young man understands that he should have kept silent, because it was obvious that Laria was uneasy. But he sighs and hopes that the girl is not too angry. Honey, she often came to sing a lullaby, and he thinks that children will not change anything much. However, the guy thinks that this is surprising, because he is a man who so mercilessly plunged enemies into eternal sleep and traitors, giving them a painful death. And ignoring their cries for mercy, he is now very worried that someone might be angry with him. The guy wonders if this really means that he has feelings. But suddenly, he hears a voice that screams that the guy is a complete disappointment. This silhouette asks if he didn't tell the boy to throw away his feelings, and Noel should just do everything for the sake of glorifying the Blackwell name, because he will never be happy anyway. The main character goes out into the corridor and thinks that these echoes of the past are appearing again. But he understands that the voice was telling the truth, because one cannot follow the lead of feelings, and there can only be a working relationship between them. But when the young man sees the main character, his heart begins to beat faster, and his face turns red. He tells the kids that Lady Sherwood is tired during the day, so he tells Mikhail to come to him, because he himself will lift him up. That same evening, the young man thought. Looking back, he realized that everything was gradually changing. The song that brought him bad memories. Her voice filled with serenity, and not only that, but the people in the mansion became more animated and joyful, and children no longer cry when they see him. So everything changes after that incident 6 years ago. His world, which had become colorless, began to fill with bright colors again, including her beautiful color. But when he looked at the young lady's lips, he realized that something was tormenting her again. He extended his hand and understood that he wanted to know about what was bothering her and how she felt. Will she stay there for a long time? What does she feel for him, and what else can he do to ease her suffering? The boy realizes that he would be happy if he knew at least that. The Archduke thinks that she is more suited to a shining aura, the one that appears when she smiles. After all, a simple smile suits her very well, and at such moments, the young lady is very charming. Withered like an old tree, a heart that desired and thirsted for nothing. It started beating again. The guy, lying in bed, understood that it would be difficult for him to fall asleep today. A little while later, when the Archduke was finishing getting dressed, Simon came into the room. He told his lordship that some time ago, the Countess of Sherwood and her son came to see Lady Sherwood. But the young man understood that he had been too careless. He thought that this family would give in after the incident at the dinner party. But he was wrong again, because if he was so eager for the attention of the young lady, it was obvious that others wanted to get it too. The Archduke knew that he needed to protect the girl from the Sherwood family, and he just had to do things the usual way. But now the main character apologizes and says that she cannot sign this contract, because she doesn't know what might happen in the future, and 3 years is too long. So she thinks that 6 months would be enough to start with. The guy thinks what it means that the girl doesn't know what will happen in the future, and whether she wants to say that she can change her mind and return to the Sherwood family. After all, if she makes peace with them, then of course it will be good. But if the girl leaves the children, him, and leaves the mansion, then it will be bad. The main character wonders why he is silent and is angry that she did not agree. However, the young man says that they will extend it for 6 months, and he will triple her salary, so the girl should think carefully about the future contract. The young man understands that he has won them 6 months, but this is not enough, because he needs a more compelling reason. The brunette claims to have heard that the Sherwood family had previously tried to break into the mansion to meet her. The girl understands that he already knew about it, although it is not strange because it is his domain. Laria replies that, yes, and her stepmother and stepbrother came. Nocton says it must have been tough for her, but the girl insists that everything is fine because the security took care of everything. And the guy says that everyone is for dotting the I's. It would be better to spread the news of their engagement. The main character does not understand what he is talking about, and the guy says that it is to get the Sherwood family to leave her alone. He thinks that if he does this, they won't be able to take her home by force. The girl understands that she is grateful, but if the engagement becomes known, the young lady asks if the Archduke himself won't be a problem. But the brunette only asks if he didn't say that there would be no problems with this, because they have a special relationship and he simply has to help. But Laria thinks that as soon as he meets the main character, he will probably beg her to break off the engagement. The girl thinks that it is still worth trying, because it is enough to simply break it before that, so she asks how Nocton would like to do it. And the guy claims that they can come to the Imperial Ball together. The young lady asks what he is talking about, and the guy says that this ball will take place on the first day of summer, and it is the largest ball in the Empire. Of course, all the nobles of the capital will be there, and if they visit it together, then the rumor of their engagement will spread throughout the Empire instantly. The girl thought that the guy would simply place an engagement announcement in the newspaper, but this was a bit too much. But then Laria realizes that if they go there together, they will have to play the sweet couple in front of everyone. And Nocton only adds that refusal is not accepted, because it is not an offer, but an order. He asks if the girl has forgotten that she works for him. The main character only thinks what kind of threats these are. She understands that she is digging a hole for herself, and this time with both hands. But she decides to see how the young man will try to settle this issue when she goes to betrothed. Then she will laugh at him with all her heart, and at the same time she will become Cupid and bring them together. And the young man thinks that in this way he will declare Laria Sherwood his. And even if everyone will point a finger at him, condemning him for his selfishness and perversion of the way he sought her, but the girl will still be his. However, the young lady turns to him and says that there is one problem, after which the Archduke asks if she can dance. The girl thinks that the thing is that she just got this body, but in her soul, she is a simple kindergarten teacher and not an aristocrat. The young man asks if she has never been to a ball before. The girl replies that, unfortunately, no. Then the guy clutches the fabric of the sofa and says that these pathetic bastards went to great lengths to hide the girl from everyone. The main character only laughs awkwardly in response to this. She understands that it is only her fault that Laria never came out into the world. The blonde asks if she can come to the ball but not dance. And the young man claims that, unfortunately, everyone is obliged to dance at least once, and this is without exception. Then the young lady asks what to do, and the Archduke rises from his seat and says that he will think of something, and let the girl leave it to him. A little while later, the main character is already studying with a tutor. The woman suggests that she start learning from the basics, and the girl remembers how the guy claimed that, with the help of lessons, the young lady would be able to learn ballroom dancing, so there would be no problems. And he has already hired Viscountess Bonnet, so the girl need not worry, because she is the best dance teacher in the Empire, and the best dressmaker, Mrs. Rosalind, will take care of Laria's outfit. After which he claims that all that remains is to add dance lessons to her busy schedule. After which he asks if there are any objections. Laria says no, but she thinks that the guy planned everything out so quickly, but he himself is far from being the most flexible person, so this is a little scary. Now the dance choreographer says that he thinks they should start with basic steps and turns, and firstly, there are several types of ballroom dancing, but the girl cannot worry because there are basic movements everywhere. Therefore, you need to take a stand, and then. But the main thing is that the burning only thinks at what height she needs to hold her hands. But then someone comes up to her and says that it will be easier and clearer if she practices with a partner. It turns out to be the Archduke. He takes the young lady by the hand and states that they will be in such a position. The main character is embarrassed by this and says that now she understands, but then they ask why the guy is so close. However, suddenly someone calls Laria. It turns out to be Mikhail and Janet. The boy says that Laria can do it. The young lady says that she will succeed. The main character thanks the kid and says that she will try. The girl decides to give it her all and show them what she's worth, because she was a star nanny during the dance rehearsal. The girl thinks that they will see and even be amazed at how quickly she learned this dance. A little while later, the choreographer is already setting the rhythm of the dance. She tells Lady Sherwood to speed up the tempo. Laria is already starting to get confused, and taking the wrong step, stumbles and falls. The girl closes her eyes in anticipation of pain, but feels nothing. And when she opens her eyes, she sees only the main character's chest. The girl is very surprised by this, and she is very embarrassed, and then asks the Archduke to let her go. After that, they return to their previous position, and the young man already seems to glow with joy. The main character thinks that she thought she would fall, although it would be better to fall than to see his chest, and she does not even understand how to forget about this now. The main character apologizes and asks Lady Bonet if they can take a short break. The woman says that of course they can, because they have been working on her for so long. Laria says that this is lovely and they can take a 10-minute break. But the young man only asks where the young lady's enthusiasm went and whether she really got tired so quickly. The girl asks what she means so quickly, since she rehearsed for at least 2 hours. Nocton only says that it is not serious. After all, it only lasted 2 hours, so he asks if her endurance is really that poorly developed, and he is already starting to worry about whether the girl will have time to learn everything. The main character is just angry about this. She thinks why she didn't prescribe such wonderful character traits as kindness, empathy, and compassion to the guy. But he definitely had to be made like that. The girl, of course, is grateful to the young man because he decided to help her and even found a teacher. But this is too much. The Archduke puts his hands on her shoulders and says that since the girl is so physically weak, he thinks that it is worth reducing her working hours. Otherwise, she might pass out from exhaustion. The young lady just screams out what he means. She also says that she doesn't get overtired when communicating with children, and it seems she has already mentioned this. But she will remind you again because her body is strong and her spirit is powerful. Nocton asks if this is true, and then claims that he has never heard of such a thing. The girl says that she often goes up the stairs with a young gentleman in her arms, and that she can even go up to the 5th floor with a child in her arms. And the Archduke then extends his hand and offers to continue their dance, and the main character agrees in response. And to the sounds of the piano, they continue their dance. But the main character is a little surprised. She wonders if this is the beginning of dancing better, and then she realizes that her skills couldn't have improved that quickly. She looks at the Archduke and wonders if it could be that he's adapted to her. And the young man, when he meets her gaze, smiles. Laria immediately turns away and thinks that this is some kind of nonsense. Why did she even think about such a thing? The children just admire the picture that appears before them. They say how beautiful Laria is. That same evening, the brunette sits in bed, thinking that the girl spends most of the day taking care of Mikhail and Janet. And after dinner, she has dance lessons. After dinner, the young lady is with the children again, and when she puts them to bed, she sings him a lullaby. The guy clutches the bookmark and thinks that they spend a lot of time together, and he won't be surprised, even if rumors spread that they are really a loving couple. And the fact that the girl continues to come every night despite her busy schedule most likely means that Nocton is disgusting to me, and maybe even pleasant. The young man thinks that he could lay claim to her heart. At this time, the main character asks from behind the door if she can come in. When the young lady comes in and sits on the bed and says it's time to go to dreamland, the guy wonders if the girl said that because she spends all day with children, because it's a bit strange for her to say that to an adult. Nocton knows he definitely shouldn't like it, but if he thinks about it as a sign of concern, it becomes pleasant. The main character only says that there are only 2 weeks left until the ball. The young man says with a smile that it is true, and fortunately, her skills have also improved during this time. The Archduke wonders if she will fall silent again and pout in an offended manner. Lips. But the young lady only remains silent. Nocton's wife does not understand what is wrong. And Laria then says that, to tell the truth, she is very grateful to his lordship. After all, he tries so hard for her, and he has nothing in common with anyone. The guy gets out of bed and tells her to wait. But the main character continues to say that they are engaged. But this is only an agreement, and in reality, they are just an employer and an employee. Therefore, the girl asks if there is anyone else in the world who would do this just for the sake of some nanny. The blonde says that she is truly grateful to him because the young man is her benefactor. The guy clutches the sheet, remembering the words that nothing connects them, and that this is simply the relationship between an employee and an employer who are bound by contracts and money. He wonders if there is even a small chance that she is happy with her life here, so much that she will stay by his side forever. And maybe the words that she will stay with him are the hope that the guy kept in his heart. And all this was just his illusion. He understands that he should not have dreamed of happiness, because on that day, 6 years ago, he decided to never trust anyone again. Then one man told him to trust him and not think about anything, and when they finish, the Archduke will be happy. Now the young man says that this voice should be silent. The main character is a little shocked by this, and Noctona is still hallucinating. This mysterious voice, penetrating the silence, asks Nocturne if he realizes that it is this voice that believes in his powers and abilities more than anyone else in this world, supporting him with an invisible but powerful energy of faith. And the boy deserves to believe it. The young man understands that he was betrayed by this disgusting kind voice. After all, that voice was offering him to get out of that damned Blackwell mansion together. Inkatan only screams at him to shut up. The guy is clearly suffering from such hallucinations, and the main character approaches him and asks if his lordship is okay. The girl understands that this symptom is a manic attack, and now the guy won't be able to calm down until he sees the scarlet liquid, because everyone who saw him in this state died almost immediately. The young lady understands that if she runs away now, she might be able to survive, and she also needs to call for help. But suddenly, Laria realizes that if she runs away, the brunette, having lost his goal, will leave the room and then someone else might get hurt. But this mansion is full of good people who helped her and wished her well. Therefore, the main character does not even know what to do. And at this time, the hand of the Archduke reaches out to her and then drags her towards him. At that very moment, the main character finds herself pinned to the bed. The young lady realizes that the Archduke has completely lost his mind, and she wonders if she will really die here. The young man only cries out how much pain he is in and that he does not want to die. The girl understands that there is something more terrible, because it is more terrible to think about how this will hurt Janet, Mikhail, and Nocton, and also how it will shock them. So the young lady cries out with a request. She asks his lordship to come to his senses. The young man bites her neck and then comes to his senses. He immediately grabs his head and moves away. And when he opens his eyes and sees a young lady covered in red liquid, he is very surprised and jumps back. He asks what all this is. And then he screams that he is a crazy idiot, because how could he do such a thing? He approaches the main character and holds out his shaking hand. The guy asks if he hurt Laria badly. Then he claims that he did not do it on purpose and could not have done it on purpose. The young lady turns to his lordship and suggests that he calm down. She says that she has hurt herself, but that everything is fine, because the wound is small. But the guy screams at her not to talk nonsense, and the young lady from the tray says to her face that it's okay because he didn't want it, and he simply couldn't help himself. Laria understands that if anyone is to blame, it is she who prescribed Naughton such a mania. After all, a manic attack is something that manifested itself due to a terrible childhood. So the main character now says that it is not his fault and puts her hand on his cheek. At that moment, knights burst into the room. They run up and ask if the Archduke is okay, but the guys just turn around. And with a sad expression on his face, he says that they are late. The chief knight says that they ask for forgiveness. He wonders if a manic attack has begun and does not understand who suffered this time. The Archduke claims that the victim is near him, and Resor is surprised because he did not expect that the victim could be the future Archduchess. But he doesn't understand how, and how the girl was able to survive at all. She definitely has wounds, but the guy doesn't understand whether she suffered from a manic attack and whether anyone has ever survived after one. The Archduke only asks why they have stopped dead in their tracks and orders them to quickly take the lady to the doctor. Then one of the knights approaches the young lady and says that if it is difficult to walk, she can use him as a support. An oppressive silence fell over the room, and everyone was in such shock that they could not utter a word. They couldn't understand how Laria Sherwood managed to survive. At first he doubted it, because no one survived a seizure. But the wound on the girl's neck made all doubts immediately disappear. And the reason why the gentleman was called a cold-blooded monster is not only because of his cruelty during the attacks. In order to stop his madness, each victim had to die earlier. And so that there was a lot of scarlet liquid. Otherwise, there would be more victims. Then the commander of the knights hands the Archduke a handkerchief. He claims that everything is fine with the lady and the guy does not have to worry. Seeing the gentleman in such a state, he involuntarily recalled the day when, as a rookie mercenary, he decided to join the Archduke as a loyal ally and knight. At that time, the young man thought that he decided to come there only because of the good salary. But who could have thought that the gentleman would immediately go to the battlefield as soon as he became the head of the Blackwell family, and upon his return, he would receive honor and glory for his bravery and courage. Then the Archduke was betrayed by one of the mercenaries, and the guy destroyed not only all the enemies, but also the allies. So the knight thought what a terrifying force this was. The brunette began to speak and asked if he had really plunged everyone into eternal sleep again. He said with a guilty expression that it happened again. The knight was shocked by this. When he saw the expression on the Archduke's face, he realized that the guy hadn't done it on purpose. The knight thought that the people he had been working with all this time had just died, and he had nowhere else to return to. He was, of course, lucky because he was the only survivor, but the young man did not understand what to do next and what to feed himself. He didn't want to admit it, but it seemed the Archduke was his last hope. The young man told the mercenary that he had done a good job and could return, but then the knight turned to the master and asked if he wanted to create a squad of knights of the Blackwell family. The boy asked what the mercenary meant, and the young man argued that instead of hiring unreliable mercenaries who could betray him at any moment, it would be better to create a personal squad of knights who would always be loyal to him. The knight hands over a handkerchief and says that he would like to become one of them if the Archduke decides to create a detachment. He also asks not to reject the idea right away. The brunette took the handkerchief from the mercenary's hands, and the latter told him to believe that he would never betray the Archduke. That day he was hired by the master and earned his trust, and now he asks why the seizure started at all and whether something really happened between him and the lady. The brunette only remains silent in response to this, and then claims that there is nothing of the sort. He throws the handkerchief back to the knight and says that there was no particular reason for it this time, and then he lies down on the sofa and sighs. He understands that Laria will most likely flatly refuse to approach him and will avoid him in every possible way. And that's right, because the guy almost finished her off. Although the young lady said that everything was fine, it was clearly not so, after all. She will look at him with fear or even hatred as others did. And it seems like it will be hard to control yourself if the girl really reacts that way. The guy feels pain just from the thought that such a possibility exists. The knight wonders if the Archduke will close himself off from everyone again and live like a hermit, when he had only just begun to live like an ordinary person. Therefore, the servant tells the master not to blame himself, because this time the attack did not lead to anything serious, and he thinks that this is clear progress. He claims that it was very good that the lady noticed in time that the seizure had begun, and immediately rang the bell, because thanks to this, they were able to come quickly. The guy says that this is how it is and is happy, but then he notices something strange, because how do ladies know the signs of the onset of a manic attack? After the doctor treats the wound, Mary approaches the young lady. She asks with tears in her eyes if the mistress is really okay, and what will happen if she has scars on her neck, because what will happen then? Laria claims that she is really okay and asks the maid not to cry. The girl understands that if she had not rung the bell in time, who knows what would have happened. But then someone turns to the main character and asks if she has any more wounds on her body. It turns out to be a doctor. The woman says that given the seriousness of the situation, the young lady got off easy since she could have easily died. The maid just hugs the lady and says to Frederica, "Don't say that, because we should be glad that the lady is still alive." Well, the doctor claims that this is not what she meant, because Lady Laria is the first person who ever survived the master's manic attack. So she asks if the girl noticed something unusual. The main character is silent for a while, and then she claims that, to be honest, she doesn't know what can be considered normal and what is not. A little while later, the maid is already leading her mistress down the corridor. She asks if Laria can really get there on her own. The young lady says that she can, and there is no need to worry so much, because she only hurt her neck. In fact, she was not lying when she said that she did not know what was normal and what was not for such cases, because even though she was his creator, she did not know much about him at all because he changed like this whole world. And from the old manic attack described to her, only one name remained, and how it begins and ends is already unknown to her. The maid, leaving the mistress, tells her not to get up early tomorrow under any circumstances because the girls need to rest properly. The main character agrees, and then tells Mary to go to bed too, because she is probably tired. After which, the young lady enters her room and leans against the door. The girl immediately slides down the door with relief, and then thinks what the hell she did. After all, it seems to her that it was because of her that Nocton was in such despair, and yet she decided to stay there only until the main character appeared. That's why the girl doesn't understand why she felt so hurt when she set the boundaries for their relationship. But Laria decides to stop thinking about it, because first she needs to better understand his manic episodes. The doctor is sitting in his office and writing something on paper, and then he hears the main character enter. He says that Mrs. Laria seems to have something to tell. Frederica, the lady brewed some calming tea. She asks if Lady Sherwood has anything else to tell her. The main character thinks for a minute, and then says that Frederica, seeing her wound, probably thought that something happened between her and Nocton. But in reality, nothing happened. The girl thanked his lordship for what he had done for her, and he went into a manic fit. And the young lady screamed and asked him to come to his senses. Then it seems at that moment he came to his senses. So the main character says that she doesn't think that anything special happened that made the symptoms go away. She asks if the doctor knows more about this than she does. Frederica says that the Archduke's manic fit is a little special. There is no such disease from a medical point of view. The main character is surprised in response to this, and the doctor hands over a book and claims that it contains all the information about various types of seizures that have happened to people before. The young lady takes the book in her hands and says that she sees nothing in common with the Archduke's illness. Frederica claims that this is indeed the case, because even if you look for similar examples in ancient literature or books, you will not find anything similar to a manic attack, and it is as if it were a non-existent disease. The blonde understands that this means the doctor doesn't know anything either. But the woman takes the young lady by the hand, and he asks to help the Archduke recover from this terrible disease. The woman claims that she is a bad doctor, and she is very sorry that she was powerless against this disease. After the girl's arrival, the atmosphere in the mansion changed. This is evident from the young lady and the gentleman, because now they are much happier, and the Archduke began to smile more often. So the doctor hopes that the presence of the young lady will gradually cure him, and he will become a happy man. Frederica kneels and asks the girl to help the master. The main character only asks what she is doing and tells her to get up quickly, but the woman repeats her request again. Then the blonde helps her up and says she will try. The next day, she comes to the Archduke's door. The girl realizes that she did not sleep all night because she was looking for materials about the Archduke's illness. She wonders why she even went there, because even his doctor can't cope with the disease, so the girl thinks how she can help at all. But suddenly, she notices a knight in front of her. He wishes the lady a good morning and claims that the Archduke is not feeling well, which is why he is here now. The young lady cries out what this means and asks if the Archduke is ill. The knight claims that this is how it happened, and there was no more business for him. But then he hears the Archduke speaking. So he closes the door and says that the young lady can go then and wishes her a good day. The main character screams for him to also tell the Archduke. But the young man is already closing the door. The girl thinks that she wanted to tell him to get well. Well, she has a feeling that the guy is deliberately avoiding her. During dinner, the main character thinks whether she did something wrong yesterday, and Mikhail screams that Janet is a fool and asks why she doesn't apologize. Then he screams that he hates the girl and that she is bad. Laria only tells them to come to her and takes their hands in hers. She turns to the young gentleman and asks how to behave during dinner. The boy replies that there is no need to speak loudly and just enjoy the food. The blonde claims that this is right. Then she asks why the boy yelled at the young lady, and the kid says that Janet doesn't want to eat beans, so she puts them on his plate. The girl asks if he screamed out of anger and decided to express his anger this way. Mikhail answers yes, but the girl asks if he felt relief after the loud screams or if his mood has improved. The young gentleman says no, and it seems he hasn't felt any better. Then the girl tells him to try to do it this way next time, and remember that bad emotions cloud the mind. So when he wants to give himself free rein, let him mentally count to 10 and then speak. And then he will be able to control his emotions and express his dissatisfaction more clearly. The girl wonders if a quarrel is necessarily bad, because if the children only yell at each other, taking out their emotions on the other person, then yes. But if during a quarrel they can identify what they are feeling now and learn to take control of the emotion and also come to an agreement, this, on the contrary, will help them learn to form correct communication skills. The boy claims that his mood was ruined when Janet threw food that she herself did not want to eat into his plate, and he wants an apology from her and a promise that she will not do it again. The boy understands that calling the girl names didn't make him feel better, but by doing what Laurie advised, he made it clear to Janet what exactly he didn't like, and it turns out he doesn't need to call her names, because if the girl apologizes now. But the little girl interrupts his thoughts and says that she is not sorry at all and asks why she should apologize. She runs out into the corridor and claims that Mikhail is stupid because he always complains. But suddenly, the little girl runs into the nanny. Mikhail asks Laria if he did something wrong. The blonde says that everything is fine. The little girl is just embarrassed to apologize, so she behaves like that. The young lady realizes that given Janet's character, she believes that an apology hurts her pride, so it is good that they have different classes today. After all, Janet needs to be alone for a while and think it over carefully. The main character tells Mary what happened and says that she therefore hopes that the maid will take care that they do not run into each other. When the maid agrees, the girl thinks that this is great and she will gradually deal with this problem. Laria also thinks that she needs to look for information about the manic seizure, but she doesn't understand where to find information. And then a brilliant idea comes to her, and the girl asks Mary to take care of the children today, after lunch, because she has an urgent matter. The girl walks down the street and thinks that the first thing she needs to do now is get some information. She enters the vegetable shop Brother Carto. The young lady addresses the seller, and the woman asks why the noble lady has come to see them, and if she needs anything. The blonde says no, and it seems the eggs she bought from them were spoiled. She also asks if she can return them. The woman just looks at him seriously, then grabs the basket and says that this is a lot of trouble, after which she heads down the street and tells him to follow her. The main character understands that she came to the vegetable shop because this place is not what it seems. The saleswoman knocks on the wall and screams for them to open it because they have an order. Then the cabinet closes and light is visible from behind it. The woman welcomes the young lady to the best intelligence guild in the empire, called Bragcarto. The main character is sitting inside a building. A woman is sitting opposite her and claims that her name is Martha, and she is also the current commander of the guild. The girl understands that thanks to them, you can get almost any information, and that the most important thing is to be sure that it will be reliable. The woman says that they will read what is needed about the young lady, and she thinks that the girl herself is already impatient to get down to business. The main character understands that first of all, she needs to hand over a basket with 30 supposedly rotten eggs, because this is a password that only some clients know about. And secondly, you need to mark one egg and put a note with a task in it. Well, it's not that simple. First, you need to make a hole in the bottom of the egg, then clean everything and put a note in, and after that, seal the hole with wax. The young lady understands that when she wrote the novel, this approach seemed brilliant to her, but now, having done everything personally, she realized how absurd it was, and if all the conditions are met, then they will review the request and say whether they agree to take on this matter or not. The woman asks if the young lady needs detailed information about the manic episode. The woman then smiles and says that this is a rather specific request, when the main character claims that this information is needed only for medical purposes. Then the woman screams, "Is she really joking?" After all, I will only ask this for that, to learn more about Nocton Blackwell's weakness. After which she tells the lady not to make her laugh. The main character then replies that it's okay, and she will tell the truth, because in fact she really needs the information for something else. She certainly understands that she could put the guild itself at risk if Nocton Blackwell himself found out about this, but she really needs it, and she is ready to risk this information for it. The woman then asks why they would put their lives on the line for such a dangerous mission. The main character takes another egg out of the basket and claims that she did not come empty-handed. There is something that will definitely interest her, whether the woman grabs this egg at that very moment, and also tells the lady to wait there because she will go and consult with the guys and return. The leader of the Bradcardo Guild in the novel was a villain who had a great interest in the Holy Lands and the saint herself. But it was extremely difficult to get information about her. But now the girl does not know for sure whether the leader's interests have remained the same, because the novel itself has changed a lot. And she prescribed only 2 features to the villain himself, and the first is a love for eggs. The author's desire to obtain information about the saint at any cost, so there is a chance that he will still be interested in her offer. At that moment, the woman returns to the room and claims that she did not know that the lady had such valuable information. She also says that the leader gave permission and they accept this request, so let the girl come back in a month. After the lady leaves, the woman sighs, and their commander thinks where she got such an inconspicuous girl. There is information about the saint. It is as if he was given a goose that lays golden eggs. The main character is heading down the street at this time. The girl understands that, thanks to her knowledge, she managed to achieve her goal, and it's good that she was thrown into her own novel. Well, at that very moment, the lady hears someone screaming what a disgusting person this idiotic womanizer is, and also let him just try to catch her eye again. The main character looks at the running lady in surprise. The girl wonders if the lovers have had a fight, but at that very moment, someone else runs into her. The lady immediately falls to the floor, and her interlocutor immediately extends his hand and apologizes. The guy claims that he should have been more attentive and asks if the lady is okay. The main character replies that she is, after which she even asks if they had met by chance before. Her interlocutor, perplexed, asks what the lady is talking about, and the main character wonders what she's talking about because suddenly he thought that she was trying to hit on him. The guy at this time turns to the nice lady and says that he would like to lie that he saw her earlier. But if he does so, the goddess will definitely be angry with him and will not allow him to be reborn again. After which he even says that if they meet again, they will be considered the state of destiny. The young man kisses the lady's hand, and the main character replies that it's okay. The girl wonders what happened. After all, she definitely saw this guy for the first time, but for some reason he seemed so familiar to her. Or maybe she had already caught a glimpse of him at Nocton's banquet, but didn't remember. At that moment, a hand approaches the lady and grabs her. One of the little girls is sitting under a tree at this time, and the maid turns to the young lady and tells her not to give in and suggests playing together. The man claims that the maid told him that Lady Shivrid left today, and he wonders if the gentleman is not curious where she went. The man replies that not really, since she most likely went away on business, but his interlocutor is interested. What if the lady went to her family? The man immediately swipes his hand across the table, and he asks why the guy makes such assumptions, because the lady has no reason to meet with the Sherwood family, after which he even tells the guy to leave if he plans to continue talking nonsense. Well, his interlocutor replies that there is some truth in his words, and is the gentleman not worried about this at all, since the family can put pressure on the young lady. The man understands that now the worst nightmare for her is him, because he almost plunged her into eternal sleep during the attack. He is partly glad that the lady is not there yet, and hopes that she will also be able to move on from this incident. But then he thinks why he can't stop worrying about her. The main character is lying on the floor at this time, and the man standing next to her claims that he almost missed the lady. It's time to start the second part of the plan. A little while later, the lady opens her eyes and thinks that she is so dizzy, but she feels the smell of some country, and for some reason, it smells like rotten eggs. At that moment, the girl comes to her senses, and in shock thinks where she is now. The lady can't even move, and her mouth is tied, and the girl hears some clucking. Someone else turns to the lady and says, "What happiness, Vitya?" She finally woke up. It's good that she came to. Otherwise, we would have had to wake her up using a rather barbaric method. And he doesn't think the lady would survive that. The guy also asks if she'll sit there stone-faced, and his interest even somehow waned, after which one of the servants unravels the lady's mouth. The main character says that he beat the leader of the Bradcardo Guild named Pedro. The guy turns to the lady, and he claims that she knows everything about him, so he believes that the girl is not at all an ordinary noble lady. The main character understands that they were only supposed to trade information, but not kidnap clients. The lady miscalculated because she had to assume that his obsession with the saint could go beyond her norm. The girl also thinks about what to do now, and whether she will be able to escape. But at the same moment, the guy turns to Laria Sherwood and says that for him, she is like a goose that lays golden eggs, a chicken that fell into the hands of a selfish man, and who would have thought that such an ordinary girl would have information for which he was ready to sacrifice a lot. Laria replies that she is not a chicken but a goose, and it can be assumed that she is still such a chicken. But will he really put her into eternal sleep? And the guy remembers that having done this, the owner of the geese discovered that inside her there was only entrails and not gold. Although what is she here? Yes, he probably wants to know everything as soon as possible. And blackmail and threats, in his opinion, are the fastest and most effective way to do this. And she will repeat that, then the guy will be left with nothing. Pedro says something rather sad to admit. But more often than not, this is what happens. However, this only happens in fairy tales about anesthesia. This game will be played in the real world. And the girl doesn't have to worry, because he won't use force, because thanks to contract magic, they can extract any information from her, and she won't even have to get her hands dirty. First, they will force her to tell only the truth, and then they will put her into a trance, and there the lady will lay everything out. The main character is shocked and asks if he is talking about contract magic. Her interlocutor says that it seems like people are hearing about this for the first time. This is a contract that is made with a magician, and thanks to it, they can force the lady to tell only the truth for the rest of her life. This will continue until the contract is broken. Pedro asks if it's not wonderful that in his time, he found an outstanding magician who is capable of using contract magic. He also tells the lady not to worry because he is not going to put her into eternal sleep. After all, he is not as stupid as the owner of the goose, and all he needs is reliable information. And then the ladies will go home to live a long and happy life. The guy asks if this isn't kindness, after which the magician directs his power at the lady, and she thinks that it's anything but that. But at that very moment, someone bursts into the room and screams at such an idiot. The main character wonders if it is Adolf. That's the name of the boy who honed his skills so much that at the age of 16, he became an imperial knight. One of the kidnappers wonders if Adolf Sherwood is really in front of them. The main character wonders how he could get there, and the guy at this time unties his sister and asks if she is okay, and those idiots didn't do anything to her either. The girl replies no, after which her brother tells the lady to stay behind him, because he wants to teach them a lesson, but he is afraid that he will accidentally touch her. Pedro, horrified, asks if the guy could stop looking at him so angrily. After all, he's like some kind of villain, but he just wanted to get information and didn't intend to harm her. After which, Pedro understands that talking won't help him. A little while later, the guy is already sitting there all beaten up. But at the same moment, he asks who gave him the right to beat them and whether the guy knows who they are, and also thinks that he will remain unpunished after this. His interlocutor asks what the kidnapper is talking about, because he was the first to kidnap his sister, and in this situation, he is the villain. Pedro replies that he didn't even lay a finger on her, then let the guy wait for the subpoena. He will be charged with assault and obstruction of business, as well as slander. At the same moment, someone else wonders if he is talking about the court, and if they insist on their own no further, then they will have to compete with him. Pedro, looking at the guy, wonders if this is Norman Sherwood, who at the age of 27 became a young judge, and there are also rumors that in the future he may even become the Minister of Justice, after which he even asks what he forgot there. Norman answers that he has caught his breath a little, so they can get down to business. The guy just said they're going to be charged with assault, obstruction of business, and defamation. According to paragraph 17 of Article 24 of the Imperial Code, encroachment on the interests of others is not punishable if there is a valid reason for such actions. And Adolf has one, because the guy tried to use magic on her sister by force, and his words are not proof of the lack of intent to plunge Laria into eternal sleep. They have witnesses' evidence against both of them, so let them be sure that it's so easy for me to get out of this. 68 paragraph 45 of article states that only registered individuals and legal entities can file a lawsuit, but his organization is not one, and for this Brad Carto will receive a fine for conducting an illegal business. When the guy wants to add something else, Pedro immediately turns to Mrs. Laria and asks them to forgive him. The guy claims that he was very rude, but if the lady is merciful to them today, she will receive any information. The main character thinks how to live and whether it is worth letting this guy go at all, because he can plunge her into eternal sleep next time. But without his help, she will not get information about Noctin's manic attack. At the same moment, the guy turns to his sister and asks why she listens to him at all, and let the girl just tell him, and he will show them where the crayfish spend the winter. The girl asks if they do contract magic. One of them replies that he did, after which the lady states that she wants to make a magical contract with Brad Carto that would prevent its members from directly or indirectly harming her. The contract must also include a clause that Brad Carto undertakes to provide her with any necessary information. The girl also says that if these points are violated, then Pedro Mister will be obliged to hand over me and my guild. When the man is about to object, the guys standing behind her immediately look at him coldly. Pedro immediately screams that he agrees to her conditions. A little while later, they say goodbye, and the guild workers tell the respected gentleman to come at any time because they will always be glad to see them. The main character sighs and realizes that she is glad that everything ended well, and she even managed to sign a lucrative contract. Only she doesn't understand how they found out that she was kidnapped and even found the place where she was held. At the same moment, someone else asks if they are finished, and the main character realizes that this is the man she met recently. The guy with the blonde hair says that he is glad that the lady is safe now. The main character says that he is the man she ran into, after which the girl asks to give her a minute, because she can't figure out what's going on there. And also, how did they even manage to find out that she was kidnapped? And what's more important is that they even knew her location. After which the three look at each other, and one of them claims that he and Adolf were walking through the market, and they noticed the sister. One of them saw that the girl was walking with some suspicious woman. They decided it was a great opportunity to talk to the lady, so we followed her, but quickly lost her in the crowd and then wandered into an alley. The main character wonders if this means that they were following her, to which the guy replies that yes, but they had no malicious intent. The girl then thinks whether she should praise them for their honesty or shame them for spying, after which she says that it is possible to allow a taxon is interested in what about the kidnapping. The guy with blonde hair says that if the lady does not object, then he will tell about it. As he watched the lady leave, he noticed that some suspicious person was watching her. The guy understood that this time they sent only one, and he assumed that they sent an assassin after him, and also moved away, so as not to expose the lady to danger. But it turned out that he was not his target, and the guy wondered if he had come for someone other than him. And later, these young people ran up to him and asked if he had seen a lady in a cloak and with a basket in her hands. The guy wondered if they were coming to her with good intentions, and if he should first talk to her alone, and only then let them near her. She was dressed indecently, but you never know. At that moment, the guy smelled something and understood that the target of these people was not him, but that lady. He also hoped that it was not too late to save her, after which he even screamed for the guys to go there. One of them asked what happened and why he ran so abruptly, but his interlocutor screamed that the lady was now in great danger. The guy realized that the lady had been kidnapped thanks to the substance called the goddess's lullaby, which had not yet had time to dissipate in his groin. From the name, it may seem that this is a harmless remedy for insomnia created by church ministers, but in fact, yes, the thing is used to kidnap people, and it can cause inhalation anesthesia, which is why it is popular among criminals. And it smells very specific, like rotten eggs and sandalwood. The main character says that's why there was a smell of rotten eggs there. Her interlocutor at this time claims that he is very glad that they managed to arrive in time from the lady's bed. The main character realizes that she is at least a little angry at Norman and Adolf because of the surveillance, but that can wait, because first she needs to thank this man. After which the main character bows and says that she is very grateful to him. Thanks to his help, she is safe and sound, so she would like to thank him. The guy then just smiles and says that it is not worth it, because he is happy that everything is fine now. But if the lady wants to repay him, he asks her to ask him for help next time if she needs it. He also hopes that the lady still hasn't forgotten, because they met again, and apparently it's fate.